Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Education meeting. The board has already met in executive session, and we saluted the flag while we were there. So at this point, we'd like to have a roll call, please. Mr. McLaughlin?
Mr. Salmon?
Here.
Ms. Schaefer?
Here.
Mrs. Gray?
Here.
Ms. Singh?
Here.
Mrs. White?
Here.
Ms. Light?
Here.
Mr. Khanna?
Here.
Ms. Hira?
Here.
Mr. Markarian?
Here.
Mr. Syed?
Here.
Ms. Fox?
Here.
Mrs. McCune?
Here.
Madam President?
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to draw your attention to the Statement of Public Notice. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of Berners Township. The notice of the time and place of the meeting was provided according to the law. For those members of the public who are unable to attend the meeting in person, a live stream link is posted on the district website, bernersboe.com. We very much welcome input from the public. There are 2 times during regular meetings that the public is invited to speak. The first time is early in the meeting before the board votes, when you may speak about any item that is listed on tonight's agenda. Towards the end of the meeting, there is another public forum to address any matter of public concern related to the schools. When you approach the microphone, please state your name and address. Each statement by a participant should be limited to 3 minutes duration, and no participant may speak more than once during a given public comment session. I'm going to try to speed through this because we have a lot of stuff to cover. We have a big, exciting presentation tonight. So as a courtesy to those individuals unable to attend, public comment may also be made remotely through Zoom. Interested individuals should go to the district webpage, bernersboe.com, and select Board of Education, followed by public comment to review the instructions, or they can click on the link in this agenda. Public comments made in person will be processed first, and then comments via Zoom. No public comments will be accepted before 7 p.m. or after the last item board forum on the agenda. Please understand that the public comment portions of our agendas are not structured as question and answer sessions, but rather they are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. The board or administration will respond to public comments to the extent possible. Any board responses to public comments will generally be addressed during board forum or during committee reports. However, all comments are considered and will be investigated and addressed as appropriate. Please be courteous and mindful of the rights of others when speaking. Comments may not be abusive, obscene, threatening, or irrelevant. Please understand that students and employees have specific legal and privacy protections. The board is not permitted to respond in public to comments about students and employees. Please also understand that the board will not be responsible for the content of comments made by members of the public. Members of the public are cautioned that they are speaking at their own risk, and any personally directed statements they make may subject them to legal liability to the affected individual. If it is necessary for the board to go into an executive session at the end of the meeting, we will provide an estimated time of length and whether any action is anticipated upon returning to public session. Okay. I don't have a lot of board comments either, board president comments. I do want to invite people to come on Wednesday to our Berners Connect meeting about the health curriculum. We've received some emails in the last several days. I know some people are away and can't attend, and they've sent us their feedback. People participated in the survey that was out earlier in the summer, and so that feedback has all been collected, and that will be discussed on Wednesday also. So I encourage people to participate in that meeting. I think the presentation from that meeting will be posted after. Okay, now we're going to go down below for the board presentation. So the board's going to move down there.
All right, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity tonight to speak with you for the Trends in Mental Health and Social Emotional Learning update. My name is Stephanie Smith. I'm the Director of School Counseling here in District. I'm joined tonight by my awesome administrative colleagues who will have their chance to speak at the second half of the presentation, but I thank everyone for being here tonight. So what is tonight? What is this presentation about? This is an overview of the data analysis that we have done as a department relative to the student frequency of visits to the counseling office and also some of the reasons why they're visiting us. And so we take a deep dive each year to look at this to make sure that we are as informed as possible about why our students are coming, how often they're coming, any observations we can make about that, so that way we are making informed decisions when it comes to our services, our programs, or any ideas that we have to help our kids. We'll also take a minute to review our district mandated reporting. So that includes home instruction, suicide prevention reports, child abuse reports, and crisis reports as well. We will hear from the professionals themselves, not actually, but little sound bites that they have provided for me tonight. And then we will answer the question, what can we do, what are we doing, and what are we looking forward to doing to respond to some of this data, and that will be our SEL programming update that we will hear from each respective school. So we'll start off with our elementary schools. Now with this data set, all 4 of the elementary schools are represented. So we're trying to be generalized, in a way on purpose, so that way we're not breaking student confidentiality. And again, we're looking at higher level trends and trying to make observations in that way. So the first pie chart that I have for you really explains the role of the elementary school counselor and how they diversify their time throughout the year. And so when I meet with that team monthly, of course, our administrative team is in touch daily. And so you'll see the allotment of time, the allocation of time is what we call it, when it comes to counseling groups, counseling classroom lessons, when it comes to individual counseling services that they provide to students, and also what we call responsive services. So that's everything that might walk through the door, that might not be a part of the plan for the day, but you do need to respond to student needs, that being number 1. Any parent phone calls, referrals from teachers. So you'll see that the majority of their time is doing just that, the responsive services, followed by the classroom lessons, so the classroom curriculum, so whether it be about bullying prevention, self-esteem, coping skills, stress management, the lesson itself can vary, and we'll take a closer look at that in a few slides. Followed by counseling groups. That's another strong component of the elementary school counseling program that we provide for our students. The lunch bunch groups are very popular, and again, those topics can vary, all based on student need. The bar graph on the right shows you the counselor caseload, and so you can see the distribution there, and the range is anywhere from 563 this last school year to 415. So it is a larger caseload at the elementary level. So that's some context for you when we're talking about student visits or services that the counselors are providing. So the total number of small groups, I talked about small group counseling as a service that we provide to the students. What we did is we took the past 2 years, and that's what we'll look at tonight throughout the entire presentation. So in 2020, 2021, there were 54 total small groups across the district. In 21-22, that increased, you can see, to 89. Part of that is based on need, whether that be referrals from teachers, from parents, or students themselves, even coming to the counselor. Or it might be, there's a lot of things that can contribute to the data. This is also the year that we've returned to full instruction, and so the students are there for the full day, and so the opportunity to have these groups and to respond to some of the needs is also more convenient in a sense because they're back fully in person. So I showed you the total number of groups, so now let's take a look at the average number of groups, what that looks like per school. And so this is the difference between 21 and 22. There were 14 on average per school, and then 23 groups run throughout the year on average per school for this past year. So when I talk about a counseling groups can typically convene for about 6 to 8 sessions or 6 to 8 weeks. It's usually about 1 group per week. They're very solution-focused, goal-oriented in terms of what the actual skill or goal of the group is. Maybe it's to build your friendship skills, maybe it's a new-to-district group, and we have students who are new and we're looking to make some friends. And so after about 6 to 8 weeks is the average, the counselor will start to finish the group. What's the average number of students who are participating in these groups? This actually stayed steady for the past 2 years. I'm not surprised by that because this is the counselor average of the number of kids who are participating in a group. It's a good, solid average number of students, and that's about 6 in district. The total number of student participants who participate in these groups, you could see the increase of about 200 more students, and most of that, the counselors would report, was during the lunchtime. So that lunch bunch group meeting was where most of our student participants had an uptick. I mentioned earlier that the counselors do spend a lot of their time in the classroom delivering their counseling curriculum. And so you can see the distribution here, the average number of lessons across all 4 schools per grade level. And so this is relatively similar per grade level, and a lot of this really can just depend on the sectioning. And so if there are more sections of the 5th grade than the 4th grade, then there are going to be more of those lessons. And so that's just some perspective for you when it comes to the numbers. Also, on average, there were 113 total lessons taught by a school counselor for each year. That total number of lessons then is almost 450 lessons. So that gives you the range, in the total, along with some averages of groups and classroom lessons. For the elementary program, as you saw in that original chart, those are, primary services that we provide to students when it comes to counseling. So that's why it's important that we monitor this data. It obviously doesn't show everything that the elementary school counselor does, but when it comes to honing in on specific counseling services, we want to highlight the groups and the counseling lessons. So this is a comparison of 21 and 22 for the average lessons per grade level, and you can see here that the trends for each year is relatively the same. And so nothing super outstanding about that. So we'll move on to our middle school counseling data at this point. Here's some context for you for this data. Now we get a little deeper and a little more individualized. And so when it comes to the counseling program, that middle learner would need a lot more individual attention at times. We were also able to do that because of the structure of the middle school program. And so large group meetings, small group meetings, yes, all of that occurs, but what we will look at specifically for the middle school, again, are those individual meetings. We also instituted, just for some perspective, the looping model at the middle school in 2019, 2020. And so we're very excited about that. That's been positively received by students, parents, teachers, and the community alike. We're also now in the 3rd year of that. And so watching the trends in this data and watching how the kids are supported or what some of their needs might be will be ever so critical as we're looking to evaluate the usefulness or the effectiveness, rather, of that looping model. And so we'll just kind of keep that in mind as some context for the data. So for the middle school counseling program, we have 7 staff members there, 6 school counselors, and 1 full-time SAC. 3 of our school counselors are also what's called school counselor/SAC. So they have that additional certification and licensure to service our students' mental health needs at a different level, at a deeper level if necessary. The number of individual students seen in the counseling office, you can see on the screen, was about 750, and the number of visits to the counseling office was just shy of 1,800. The distribution in the pie chart also shows you by grade level that it was pretty even between 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. Now that's for 2020, 2021. So we'll take a look now at the next year and see any differences in the data that we see. The individual students seen, slight dip there, but an increase in the number of visits. And so an observation that you can make is that students needed more visits to the counseling office in order to reach their goals, whatever that might be, which is fine. There's no right or wrong there, but it is an observation that is helpful for the department. The percentage of students needing counseling services also did shift a bit from being pretty even throughout the 3 grade levels, with 6th grade and 8th grade having the most amount of visits. School counselors service all students. We also work very closely with the case manager team out of special services. And so we like to look at the students who are coming in for regular counseling, what type of educational program that they participate in. Most of our students are general education. Like I said, we work closely with our case manager colleagues to support students with IEPs, and students with IEPs who require counseling are typically seen by the case management team as well. And that's pretty steady for both years. Next, we looked at the number of visits per month. And so any trends or patterns that we can see per month can help us maybe make projections in terms of scheduling different programs or clearing our own calendars to respond to student needs. And so something that we notice and talk about as a department is that right before and right after any grading period, when report cards are coming out, that's when we tend to see an uptick. And so you'll see that trend continue even through when we get to the high school section. And so you can observe that now. And October, too, is usually a very highly visited month to the counseling office. Once students have a chance to settle in their classes, and then they're coming to seek whatever support they might need after a few weeks. So an interesting observation for the following year is that returning back in fully in person for instruction, at the beginning of the year, you do see that uptick. And so all these numbers are higher because the total number of visits, as you saw previously, was higher as well. And so you could see throughout the year that there's a slower decline towards the end of the year with the counselor visits. So it's interesting for us to see how it's maintaining around those grading periods the number of visits to the counseling office. So this right here shows you the number of visits per student that when they came to visit, how many visits did they have? And so I think that this is always an interesting conversation piece between me and the counselors because it really lets us look at how often students are coming back. So you can see that the majority of students would come for one visit, again, which is fine. You might have the questions answered that you need and get the support that you need, and that works perfectly for you. But you also see the distribution of students who are coming 2, 3, and 4 times. And so what you see on the screen there is for 2020, 2021. And then when we go to 21, 22, then you can start to analyze how there is an increase in the number of students who are coming 2, 3, and 4 times. Even 5 and 6 times was a little bit higher. So students were coming up to about 29 times. That is an outlier. That is one student. And so it's important to keep that in mind as well. And so, again, for the middle school, there is an increase in the total number of visits, and then also a number of visits per student that we're seeing. So there's definitely a utilization of counseling services at the middle school. Now, why are they coming, right? That's an important question. The direct services that students are seeking are also classified by the school counselors, and they keep track of that. And so you can see here in the chart that the most amount of visits were due to what we call developmental or social reasons. And so maybe it's a peer conflict. Maybe it's something that you're going through as a middle schooler, something emotional that you need someone to talk to. You need some support. And so that is the most popular reason in 2020, 2021 to seek counseling support. Right after that is actually academic support at the middle school. Now, you could see other there. Now, other sort of encapsulates anything else that might be going on in the counseling suite. And so that may be regular student check-ins that they're grabbing students just to check in. Students aren't necessarily seeking counseling support or signing up for an appointment, but counselors are proactively seeking them out. It might be registrations or scheduling new students, meeting with families. And so that other category encapsulates everything else. Bless you. So then we'll go to the next year, 21, 22, the direct services. So I'll just go back and forth there so you could see the difference. So there definitely is an increase in behavioral reasons to come see the school counselor. And that's also an increase a bit in, again, developmental, peer, social reasons to see a school counselor. So of this chart, this pie chart that you're looking at right here, let's extract academic and let's focus on everything else. And we'll call everything else wellness, all right? Whether it's peer-related, developmental, mental health, a student in crisis. Let's drill in a little further on specifically just the wellness areas. What are the reasons for those wellness visits? How would the school counselor describe why those students are coming. Something that they observed, any trends that they observed with their students. About 64% in 2020-2021, the students were exhibiting some symptoms of anxiety, and then followed by that, some symptoms of depression. Some students were in active crisis that would require coordination with the family or emergency services, and some students, a small percentage, were seen for school refusal reasons. The following year, we'll do the same thing, drilling into just specifically the social and emotional reasons for coming. What are some trends or behaviors that counselors are noticing? Another uptick in symptoms of anxiety. So about 3/4 of the reasons that students would seek a school counselor for social and emotional support are due to feelings of anxiety that they might have. Followed by that are some feelings that are related to depression that they might have as well. Now, some students are seen for multiple reasons, and so a counselor might mark a visit as both, and so it's important to include both because a student might be exhibiting symptoms of anxiety, symptoms of depression. They may have come in initially for an academic reason, and the conversations progressed for something more like emotional support. And so it's okay for it to be both, but what you see is the whole percentage representation, no matter how they were identified by the school counselor. So as I mentioned before, we have school counselors and we have SACs, the Student Assistance Counselors. They coordinate what's called the Student Assistance Program. And so our SAC program is run by our SACs, and so they also keep track of the reasons for visits and the total number of referrals. So we work very closely as a team, and so the school counselors, if they are working with the student, particularly the graph you saw about the number of visits per counselor, if they're starting to see an increased amount and the student might need a higher level of care or additional care from someone else, then there might be a referral to the SAC. And so you could see the total referrals at the bottom. There's definitely increased utilization of the SAC at the middle school in this past year, and the two columns there you can compare between 2020 and 2021. The top chart, you can see the reasons for the visits that the SACs have identified. So whether it be mental health, whether it be substance use or abuse, sometimes combined. And other developmental is, again, could be anything related to social or peer issues. Some school refusal or some behavioral reasons for coming to see a school counselor, some even related to HIB. As you can see, between 2020 and 2021, again on trend with an increased amount of mental health visits to the SAC. That would go hand in hand and make sense with the increased total referrals as well. So the main reason you're seeking the SAC is due to increased symptoms of anxiety or depression. Those are the most common reasons. And then you can see that here. So our SACs coordinate with all school counselors. Like I mentioned, the sole SAC at the middle school will work with all grade levels, and so they span their services for families of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, work with all teachers in the building, and really provide some strong support to the counseling staff. You could see 2021 and 2022, again, that increase in mental health, and also the increase in 22 for behavioral reasons for going to see a SAC. Now, when it says HIB up there, I just want to point out that that does not mean anything disciplinarian when it comes to go seeing the counselor. And so, what it might mean is that there might be something related to a peer or a bullying situation or anything just related to behavior in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be a HIB, but what the counselor does is helps with the coping skills, the stress management, helps to process any events that might happen, so that they're doing both preventative and responsive work at the same time. Our student assistance program also tracks screenings and placements. And so our SAC staff, they are licensed to do preliminary screenings on our students and make referrals to appropriate community agencies, whether it is a psychiatric screening, a community mental health agency, or any other private therapist or psychologist or psychiatrist who may be of the family's choice to help the student who may be in crisis. So in 2020, 2021, there were 7 emergency screenings. Keep in mind, too, that with students being home, the reporting for this may look differently, right? And so sometimes parents would take students directly to a professional outside of the school to be screened, whereas back in school in session, you see this uptick because the school is seeing the students for the full day, right? And so they are working closely with students. Parents are utilizing the services of the SAC for emergency preliminary screenings as well. We also keep track of students who are participating in psychiatric intensive outpatient programs. And so an intensive outpatient program, the staff will refer to that as an IOP. And so that would mean that for a few hours a day, a couple days a week, each program, each student need looks different, you would participate in a therapy program with specific goals based on what your needs are. And so sometimes the school is in coordination with the family for that so that we can help the student with academic needs, to fill in any gaps and to be really of support to help them transition back to school when they complete their IOP program, or to help them transition to, any other learning goals that they have based on their therapeutic program. Now, some parents enroll their student in a psychiatric IOP program, and that's completely fine, and this isn't necessarily something that's coordinated through the counseling department. And so this is not all-inclusive of the number of students who are participating, but this is the number that represents that was coordinated by the SAC by referral from a parent. We also keep track, in the same respect, to anybody who we know about who may be hospitalized for psychiatric reasons as well. Similarly, our SAC staff will track any IOP or residential programs related to drug and alcohol treatment, so substance use or abuse for our middle school students. Our SAC program also works in coordination with our administrators and our nursing staff to document students who are sent for drug testing as well as voluntary random drug testing. And so these programs will be in full effect for this school year, and we will have data to report out on this for next year when we reflect on the 22-23 school year as well. Ridge High School. We will proceed on to the high school at this point. Data considerations for the high school. So this is very similar to the middle school. We have large group meetings that often the counselors will convene in this very room to be with their caseloads to give them information that they need, be it about college and career readiness, wellness, if they're doing presentations. In fact, on the first day of school, every counselor is going to be in here meeting with every grade level caseload, and they'll do that on the first day of school for a counseling presentation. We also have small group meetings. We have the counseling staff meets with students for small groups. The SAC staff primarily run the small groups. Last year there were 2 groups run. We worked in collaboration with a community agency to support students who are experiencing cancer with a family member and who need some support. That was a very helpful group for a number of our students. We also worked very closely with our English language learning department to support students who were new to district or new to the country to provide some emotional support for those students as well. So again, it doesn't encapsulate everything that they do, but what we're about to dive into will give you an idea of the individual reasons why students might be coming and some trends that we've observed as well. So the individual students that were seen at the high school was just shy of 1,500 total in 2020, 2021, and then the number of visits total was just shy of 4,000 visits. Similarly to what we looked at WAMS, you can see the grade distribution in the pie chart, and so the grade that most heavily utilizes counseling services are the seniors. In 21-22, we have about 1,700 students coming to see counseling, and the number of total visits just over 5,000. So again, an uptick and an increase in the number of visits that are coming through the office for this past school year. Grade 12 is still in the lead for coming to the counseling office, and right behind is grade 11. Again, here we'll look at the type of program that the students are participating in. We, in our counseling suite, work very closely, just like at the middle school, with our case management staff. Most of the students, year after year, that are coming for regular counseling appointments are students who are of general education. Regular counseling through the IEP program is typically the case manager, and the counselor can act as a support, of course. We also looked at the number of visits per month in the counseling program. And so we see a very similar trend to the middle school, which is around the marking period grading time. You can see an increased number of visits to the counseling office. So sometimes that is definitely for academic support, and sometimes it's for emotional support as well, if students are experiencing stress or anxiety over the academics. You can see that October, that there is that uptick in January as well. For the very next year, October again is always a heavy month when students start to settle into the school year across all grades. October is a very busy month in the counseling office. This is also when our seniors need a lot of concentrated support and when we have our individual senior meetings as well. In February, we're also seeing a lot of seniors mid-year with mid-year reports, and we're seeing a lot of the underclassmen at that point as well too, any students who might need mid-year schedule changes, and then we start off our entire registration process as well for next year's classes. And so it helps to see the distribution throughout the school year. We also analyze the number of visits per student coming to the counselor again, and so most of the students are coming once, with shortly behind that are 2 to 3 times visiting the school counselor. So you can see that most students are seeking their counselor between 1 to 5 times. At the high school, all these numbers are increased for the next year because the total number of visits increased, right? And so you're going to see an increase in every category thereafter. And so more students are seeking their counselor more often is what we can take from as an observation from this data. Why are they coming? We asked the same question. What are some of the reasons? And so for the high school, the most common reason for seeking counseling services is academic, followed shortly by college and career readiness, what we call post-secondary support. And so most of the visits coming to the office are for that academic support, followed by social and developmental issues, as well as mental health. So this is for 2020, 2021. So let's take a look at the same analysis for 21, 22. So you can see an increase in post-secondary and academic, and a slight decrease in the mental health. Now, what you'll notice, interestingly enough, is that there's an increase in SAC referrals. And so what it tells us is that our team is working very closely together. And so where counselors are interchangeably working and supporting with the student with the SAC, it's a common way of approaching a student who might need an additional level of care. So now let's drill in the same way we did with the middle school to take a look closer at the social and emotional reasons for coming to see a counselor. You know, what are some further observations that we can make? The most common reason is for social or developmental reasons, and so peer reasons, adjusting to school. You'll hear from the staff in our next segment of the PowerPoint that adjusting back to school and making those social relationships again was a primary focus to counseling sessions. Some anxiety that might come with that, you know, the difficulty of adjusting, that was a primary reason. Followed again by symptoms of anxiety and symptoms of depression. So now let's look at this most recent school year, and it's pretty similar to the prior year, with a slight increase in the symptoms of anxiety being present as well. And again here, this is where you can have multiple reasons for visiting a school counselor again. You could be showing one or more categories in your visit, and that's fine. The counselor is just documenting some of the reasons. So for our high school student assistance program, the number of students seen by the SAC, you could see the graph on your left for each school year. And so there's an increase, but from 2019 into this past school year, there's definitely an increase every year. And so it makes sense when you see the academic heaviness of the reasons for coming to see the counselor. You know, we're seeing increased referrals to the SAC for some support. The average number of visits per student to the SAC, you can observe that between 2019-20 and the following year, there's an uptick. So they're seeing the SAC more times for support. But then this most recent year, they're needing the SAC for less visits. And so there are more students seeking it, needing less visits in order to accomplish their goal. Some of the reasons for these visits: mental health, substance abuse or use, a combination of that, or social or developmental. And so the SACs indicate that, which you could see on the screen there, that there's usually a balance between social, developmental, or mental health reasons for coming to see a SAC. And again, in 21-22, the social and developmental was definitely more of the reasons to come see a SAC. Our SACs also work very closely with our case managers and with community therapists who have disclosure agreements with with the families to work collaboratively with the student to meet some common goals that the student might have when they are being provided services outside of school as well. So our SACs also track the screenings and placements, and so emergency psychiatric visits, psychiatric IOP like I described before, or even hospitalizations. And so you could see the increase in psychiatric screenings that occurred at the high school for 21-22. Again, students being fully in school in person all year. They're here with us, and so SACs are with the students all day and available for that service. Students who participated in an IOP program that was coordinated through the SAC and the family, that there was a decrease in that. But again, it doesn't represent the total number of students in an IOP. It's just what's coordinated through the SAC's office. You also can see our drug and alcohol treatment programs and students who are in an IOP or a residential treatment, that there was a slight increase in that from this past school year as well. And then again, just like the William Annan section, we have our students who are sent for drug testing, and then students who, in this past school year, there were 2, and they were both negative. And then voluntary random drug testing is a program that's run in coordination very closely with our nursing staff, and so that program will pick back up this school year as well. All right, so that is the individual counseling analysis and the reasons for visits that we have for the past 2 years. And so this next section, we'll take a look at the district reporting. And so across the district, home instruction, suicide intervention reports, so some of those emergency screenings that I mentioned earlier, the violence prevention reports, and then child abuse mandated reporting that we conduct as school officials as well. So home instruction, my office coordinates the home instruction program. I work very closely with the nurses throughout the district who are wonderful with this program and really providing families the support that they need during what is often a very fragile time when they are not in school full time for a variety of reasons. And so we come in with academic support and to help the student transition back to school when they're ready. So the total number of students who are on home instruction for this past school year was almost double than the year before. Also keep in mind that home instruction did look differently for the years when we were in hybrid or fully virtual because students had access to the curriculum and to the classroom through the virtual platform. And so this past school year was really a return to home instruction, which conducts tutoring after school hours when teachers are meeting with students after the school day. So the number of rounds, due to the increased number of students in total, then therefore the number of rounds would increase. And so what's a round of home instruction? A round of home instruction is when a student is approved for home instruction, it's based on an initial physician's order that will dictate a specific set of time based on the student's program, based on the student's goals. And so that might be 30 days, that might be 2 weeks. It's different per student. And so, but once they complete that initial approval round, they're typically returned back to school. If they're not, then we will just reinstitute home instruction for another round. So home instruction services by school. Most of our home instruction students are from the high school in grades 9 through 12. Right after that are our middle school students. Home instruction by grade, so just diving a bit deeper and looking at grade. The grade distribution, most of our students compared to this year and last, 12th graders, are the students who are on home instruction most commonly. Approval type. So you might be approved for home instruction through our district physician, and so that may be for a medical physical reason, it might be for a psychiatric reason, but you're going through our district home instruction. You may also be approved through home instruction directly through your IEP as more of an academic placement. So you can see that most of our students are receiving home instruction services because they have been approved through our district physician. So therefore, it's either a physical or a psychiatric reason that they're receiving services. So what does that look like if you drill into that? And so most of the students in 20 and 21 were for psychiatric reasons. And so previously we looked at charts for psychiatric IOPs, psychiatric residential treatments. And so for any students who might be participating in those programs, they may also be part of our home instruction. It's not always the same students, but sometimes and often it is. So those are the psychiatric reason, or psychiatric was the most common reason in 2020, 2021. The following year, it was also psychiatric as well. The colors flipped on me there in the chart, but psychiatric is our leading reason for being on home instruction. A physical reason is, pretty close in 2022, this last school year as well. The type of educational program that our students on home instruction participate in, most of our students were general education in 21, and then most of our students were special education in 22. So it's just an interesting data point that we look at. It does vary in terms of, by New Jersey code, how many tutoring hours are allotted for students based on their educational program, and so we provide students and families with the appropriate academic support that they need based on their educational program. Who are the tutors, right? We like to keep track of this so that we know and can keep a quality program running. And so in 2021, most of our tutors were third-party providers. And so maybe in the IOP placement, my office can coordinate tutoring through an academic professional who is also placed and works at the residential or IOP program. And so maybe a student is also part of a hospital program for a surgery. And most of our hospitals also have an academic component if they're in a residential program where I can coordinate tutoring through my office through a third-party provider that's approved by the district. This past school year, it was actually our Bernards Township teachers that took the lead in terms of being providers for home instruction tutoring. So next we'll take a look at suicide, violence, and child abuse reports. And so the total of all three of those categories, there was actually steady between 2019 and 2021, but then there was an increase this past school year in the total number of suicide, violence, and child abuse reports across the district. So the totals by school, you can see that Ridge High School had the most amount of suicide intervention reports, followed by the middle school. And so our students in grades 6 through 12 are receiving the most amount of interventions related to an emergency psychiatric screening by our counseling staff. The totals by year, you could see visually what that looks like here as well. Violence prevention reports, and so this is what typically includes a threat assessment if there is harm or any sort of reporting harm to others. Our staff, we are required to conduct threat assessments, and so violence prevention reports, our staff are trained to do this, and so there was an increase in the total amount of violence prevention reports, and you can see the distribution by school that these were our 6th through 8th graders this past school year who were receiving services related to violence prevention. Our child abuse referrals, and so the Department of Child Protection and Permanency, DCP&P, the total number per year, you can see on the far right side that it's pretty steady per year in a similar range, with the high school and one of the elementary schools this past year being almost even. The high school typically, in terms of trend, has the most amount of DCP&P, also the most amount of students that we're looking at. So the professional sound bites, there was a lot of data and a lot of slides and a lot of information. And so what I like to do is to round it out and to hear from the staff. And so we look at this, and the counseling staff and the SACs, they will look at their data, they track their data throughout the year, and then they speak to it. I ask them to bring it alive. What are the issues that you are seeing that are walking through your office? What are the challenges that our kids are facing? What sticks out to you when I ask you to reflect on the year, as the reasons for your counseling visits? And then, what's interesting is to look at how what they are reporting, how it is reflective or not with the data. So what our elementary staff are reporting are that definitely students are exhibiting with more frequency the symptoms of anxiety. And so that's also was reflected in the data that you saw and that we observed. We're also seeing a lot of students reaching out for support, which is great that they are feeling like they know and have a trusted adult who can support them. We also feel that students are struggling with coping with very big emotions. And so sometimes the intensity of the emotion, understanding the emotion, giving it a name, something that you can work with and through. That's a difficulty that our students are facing as well. Wanting to connect with peers was a big experience that our elementary staff also had with our students. And so wanting that connection, which makes sense with the return to in-person school, that they're wanting to be with their friends and to have those peer relationships. At the middle school, it's very similar. And so we're seeing a lot of peer focus. Sometimes that can come with some stressors. As we know, some of the data was reflective of that, but our students ultimately are wanting to be connected with one another. They are more frequently visiting counseling services, and so they know and trust that they have somebody in the school who can support them, and so there's definitely an increase in that as well. Social media influences continue to be something that the middle school staff especially, that comes to mind in terms of reasons for counseling support, whether it be emotional or behavioral. Again, having a lot of big emotions and working through those emotions and working through coping skills as well. For our high school students, the staff actually said very similar commentary. And so it was interesting to observe at 3 different points, relatively connected ideas that they're having about why students are coming to see them. They did mention that the rotating drop schedule, the students are giving positive feedback about that, and that they're feeling like there's some reprieve in the day for their lunch to connect with peers, which is what they want to do, and that the rotation is something that's working positively for them. More students are reaching out and are coming to see the counselors, what the counselors are reporting as well. We also see that in the data. And so they're also reporting a continued pressure to feel, to be the best. And so that's something that we work through with our students as well. And so those are the general reasons for coming to see counseling that I hope to sort of explain just beyond numbers and charts and graphs, and to really get the professionals' voices here to give you an idea of the counseling program and the services that we provide. So it then begs the question, what can we do? What are we doing? What do we plan a little bit to do this school year? A little of that as well. And so that brings us to the next section of our presentation. And so this is the social and emotional learning program update. And so I have had the privilege of speaking of the counseling program, which I really appreciate your time and attention to that. And I thank the counseling staff, for all that they do all year long. And I also do want to be clear, though, when it comes to social and emotional learning, this is something that we really work on as an entire Berners Township district. And so it extends far beyond just the school counseling program. And so it is the Office of Special Services. It is the Office of Curriculum of Instruction. It's our teachers. It's everyone. It's our nurses. It's our administrative team. And so what we're hoping to do in this next segment is to give you a peek of the programs that we do to address some of these needs that our kids have in each of our school buildings. And so with no further ado, I will welcome up Oak Street.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Good to see everyone. Glad I got to walk up here. It was very lengthy and thorough, but great job. We put together a few snapshots of Oak Street and how we work with our community and our parents to build SEL into our programs and help our students. So in brief, we do new family orientation and tours. We really want to focus. We've been focusing already this summer. Sorry, my voice is a little scratchy, not COVID. Tours already this summer, and new programs are actually coming as we speak, which is we're really excited about. Last year, we came back to Chalk the Walk, which was a really wonderful, happy thing for our staff to experience. The parents and the students did a wonderful job just really graffitiing out the walkways to our buildings. Beautiful job, and it really made the staff very happy. And it was a really good thing for the students to do too, in order to appreciate their teachers and show love of their buildings. So it was wonderful, if anyone has seen those pictures. Collection for Purple Apron and the Somerset County Food Bank. These were done with students and with families with our PTO. Again, community building on that. Community Day with our kindergartners, meeting our community of helpers. We had the police department, actually the mayor, because his kids go there, maybe that's why he comes, but the mayor. But the biggest hit was actually the Public Works. It was like Bob the Builder took over the parking lot. I mean, the police, the fire engines, I would have thought the fire engines would have been more popular, but it was really the Public Works. They're going to bring more tractors next year. So but it was a nice way to have our students connect with the community, and also the community to connect with our students, which was wonderful to experience. Same with Ridge Gives Back. I think we felt like 500 Ridge students come. Mr. Lazovic, it was seriously, I think there was 70, 60 or so. It was amazing just watching them come down the road. And but even cuter was, most of our kindergartners, first graders, even second graders had like hands around, these older kids walking to the lunchroom, walking to their recess. It was wonderful. Actually, I had 3 that worked with me, and that was very helpful. And we look forward to having more students come back next year. Veterans also was really touching. Our 5th grade class dedicated the flag, and we had 3 veterans join us from 3 different wars. We actually had a World War II veteran, and pretty big history person myself. And the gentlemen, when they all came up to tell the kids about their experiences, extremely humble men. And the one man mentioned being somewhere called Hiroshima, and the kids were like, whatever. And he's like, yeah, no big deal, I didn't really do anything there. And so he was actually, in Japan after the bombing, and he was getting around better than I get around. I mean, he was quite vibrant, really sharp, and I think that did a nice thing for our students to appreciate their community and these people that are living there who have really served our country. Wonderful. Character education, character through kindness. Kindness matters at Oak Street, our theme. Cross-grade nest group meetings. Really, really wonderful program we have here too. Kindergartners, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade students all together in the same nests with the teacher, learning character ed, assignments or talks or whatever it may be for that particular month or bi-monthly meetings. It was a little different in the beginning of the year when COVID was more, happening, but as the year progressed, we were able to really get them together more. We were creative. We went outside a lot and had these activities. So we can still hold them, and it was still a wonderful activity. Week of Respect, participated in that as well. Student council leaders, grade 5. They did another great job. They really did it was a new advisor this year, and these 5th graders really reached out to the underclassmen and advocated, and they'd invite administration, Ms. Foley and myself in to, why isn't there enough ice cream when it comes to 3rd grade, or what else could we do for recess, and we need more this or that. They did a real nice job kind of looking out for their younger siblings and friends. Very cute. Morning announcements with staff and students, student announcers. They're becoming more and more part of our announcement in the mornings. It used to be adults, and now it's kids, which is really community building and wonderful. SEL at Oak Street. We welcome members of the Newmark School to come to our school, and we also went there. Many of our staff members had the opportunity to go to Newmark, sharing best practices. We implemented common language, phraseology with our staff and students. SEL and the counseling program. instruction, small groups for socialization. We had the OSS SEL Day. That was really fun. That was a great new initiative that we took on, which I think was a big hit with our students and our staff. We participated in a Great Kindness Challenge. And we did Spirit Days on Wednesdays, and Fridays were Fitness Fridays for encouraging, feeling good, exercising, movement, which is also important for SEL. And then some technology time, short films created to celebrate events that the students created or staff, video tours of the school. The staff all created their own little videos welcoming students and staff back, which was very important, especially when COVID was, more around. A Jamboard and Padlet allowed classes to collaborate on thoughts and building group skills while working on school projects. And then Flipgrid gave our students the chance to display their musical talents and featured pledge leaders. So each day a different student would be able to pledge allegiance in the morning announcements. So, but it's been a really, it was a great year. Even despite what was, we were coming back from, I think the staff and the students really embraced each other and had a really good vibe in the building, and it was lots of fun. So thanks for letting me participate. And now Liberty Corner.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Pam Lawrence, the assistant principal at Liberty Corner School. So having good character is one of the many important lessons our school teaches, because you have to have a strong foundation before you're able to learn and become a responsible citizen. Our main goal this past year was to work on bringing our sense of community back and getting those students to connect, like Ms. Smith was just talking about. Some of our themes to accomplish this were kindness, friendship, and digital citizenship. At Liberty Corner School, Mr. Rauschenberger, on top of the groups that he does and the lessons that he has in the classroom, and Ms. Ranieri, our third grade teacher, they lead our outstanding school-wide leadership programs. Peace Patrol it involves fifth graders, where they're spending their lunch and recess with third graders to work on conflict resolution and social skills. Our Junior Peace Patrol involves fourth graders spending lunch and recess with the kindergartners to work on the same. Our Boosters Club involves third grade, fourth grade, and fifth graders during their recess time to help out students in the second grade classroom. Morning greeters are our third graders who are standing at the entrance waving to everybody with the little Casey paws, and Casey is our mascot, and it stands for King Character. The Student Council got our school store back up and running. That was a big hit to bring that back. And they held a virtual Great Kindness Assembly. They handed out packets of hot chocolate to teachers to say thanks, Chocolat, for all the hard work. They created welcome LCS cards for new students as they started their first year at LCS. And they also wrote letters to our local senior citizens. Kids for Character, or what we say is KFC, they worked with Student Council on a lot of those projects. They also read announcements each morning and planned for our assemblies. We like the saying around our school, our character is what we do when we think no one is looking. Lunch and recess is the perfect opportunity to display your true character, and it's also the perfect opportunity to teach it. So we work closely with our lunch leaders to develop the students' social emotional skills through lesson plans. They were teaching our students how to socialize with each other, work out differences, and have fun safely. We plan on continuing more of that this year. And in addition to the classroom, lunch, and recess, we have also set a time to work with buddy classes to build more of those peer connections, attend assemblies, and participate in classroom meetings to further develop these values in our students. You will see pictures here about other social emotional learning opportunities for the past school year. Connection Day was extremely important. Because of the year that we had, it was important to start socializing and making connections right away. Even though it was done through a mask and distance more than normal, they still had a lot of great personal stories to share with each other. This day broke down some of those walls that they built up over the summer, and they were able to make those connections with each other. We had some great assemblies both inside and outside to bring that sense of community back. And of course, our school events like the Glow Dance, Fun Day, or our Halloween Parade are always the nice times that our students remember from year to year with their friends. So for next year, our goal is to work on integrating more character education into our already existing curriculum, providing opportunities for our students to develop their good character within the work that they already do. For instance, what does respect look like and sound like when we're working in our book clubs and during reading time? Or what is the best way to disagree with someone during our math talks? We're even going to do a whole school book club, which is making my former reading specialist self very happy. We're reading the book called The World According to Humphrey, and students of all ages, kindergarten through 5th grade, can learn a lot from this little hamster. The most effective character education happens when it is integrated throughout the day, and that is what our staff worked on over this past summer. For the upcoming school year, we have a team of teachers who are dedicated to our character education program to make each year's program fresher and better from the last. So I look forward to reporting back to you about how that went. And now you'll hear from Mr. Pepitone, the assistant principal from Mount Prospect.
Hi, good evening. I think, as Ms. Lawrence said, the focus for us this school year was really reestablishing that sense of community in our building. And we did that really, at the heart of that was the CASEL competencies. We wanted to make sure that that was the center focus of the SEL lessons that we did in our classroom, and also with any of the character ed initiatives that we worked on throughout the school year. At the center, we have really our Panther Pride traits, which stands for being positive, showing respect, integrity, determination, and empathy. And we highlight each of those traits during our monthly school assemblies. We allow students to have discussions and do role-playing related to those traits with like everyday scenarios that they see in their daily life in the school. We also have a chance to recognize students who are exhibiting those traits on a consistent basis by awarding them the DUDE Award, which stands for Doing Universal Deeds of Excellence. And we highlight students each month during the assembly, and staff members too, who have been nominated for those awards. In addition to our character ed initiatives, we also focus on positive discipline at Mount Prospect. This year, we continued to promote the common language that we use throughout the building. Specifically, we focused on what is expected versus unexpected behavior. And what's great about that is students, whether they're in the lunchroom or they're in a special or in their classroom, it's kind of a cue word when they say, you know, that was unexpected. It helps cue students into understanding what was expected, what's our routines, what's our procedures, and it's consistent across everywhere that they go throughout the building. We're excited about continuing with our class meeting structure in the coming school year. Specifically, what we like to do is make it more student-centered. Allow students the opportunity during class meetings to have, to suggest agenda items, to be able to share their ideas, to be able to just connect with peers. As was stated earlier, that idea of that longing for that connection, we hope that the class meeting structure will give them that opportunity. We feel that, you know, that sense of belonging, that sense of significance within your school, within your classroom is important, it's most important, and that student voice is the way to get there. And so our class meeting structure will hopefully get us there as well. Some of the opportunities to connect, as we talked about before, lunch bunches across the K-5 curriculum, wonderful opportunity there, and definitely we saw an uptick in the number of students who took advantage of that with Mrs. Jangaro. We also provide staff with an opportunity to connect with one another through our Fitness Fridays, and we also connect with our community members through some Valentine cards. You can see some of our community members in the pictures there getting their cards. Something we started this year, which we hadn't done in a while, was allow for students to come down and have lunch with myself and Ms. Hosney. Got a little ruckus at a few times, but it was still a lot of fun. And then some of our school-wide initiatives, we also take part in the Great Kindness Challenge, Read Across America. We were able to start our buddy classes again, which was wonderful, in our team time, which we weren't able to do. So it was great. Again, just opportunities to connect with one another across grade levels or disciplines. Biggest thing that you can see in the picture there as well is our International Day. Last year, presenting this information, I had little snippets of Zoom cells where all the kids were dancing, so it was great to get them back up on the stage. They didn't have to hold hands with one another, and I think third graders enjoyed not having to hold hands with one another while they danced. But we had a great time, an opportunity for the whole community to come together, share their culture, and share their experiences, and we just hope to build on that again in the coming school year. And now I'll turn it over to Mrs. Ewing.
There's so many neat ideas that I'm going to steal. I was taking notes as you were talking, so I hope I have some new items to share with you. So thanks so much for having me in to speak tonight. I'm really passionate about SEL in our building, and I'm really fortunate to have a fantastic team at Cedar Hill to work with. So one of the things that we have are monthly green and gold assemblies. We were really excited to be back in person this year, although I do miss our mobile TV card, our little studio that we had perfected during the pandemic. And this year, as Mrs. Smith had recognized earlier, our school culture and climate team, which meets monthly, they really recognized the need for a focus on emotions this year, that the students were having very big emotions that they couldn't quite tackle. So we decided to move into the Diane Albert Little Spot series. So we focus on a different emotion each month, how to recognize that emotion, how to handle that emotion. In line with the assemblies, we always have a character education newsletter that's shared with our parents and our students that everybody can be informed of what we're working on. We also have a character challenge each month, which just entices the kids to try out something new and really, put that theme into action that month. We have some different student recognitions. We have a vocabulary challenge where the students are invited to participate in a vocabulary challenge and use that word. We also have hoot recognitions because we're the Golden Owls, so students are recognized for exemplary behavior. One thing that I forgot to put on there, we implemented a cafeteria ticketing system where students earn tickets for positive behavior, which they then were able to spend at our school store, which they were all very excited about, seeing that they could actually buy things with those kind deeds. And we also have a daily inspirational thought that is posted on our school easel as the students walk in and is also recited during the morning announcements. We participated in Kindness Week, so you can see our interactive bulletin board where the students were really excited to walk by, take a kindness card, perform that deed, and then they would replace it with a new one. Like the other schools, we have the buddy classes where our younger kiddos can meet up with older students, and it's very exciting in third grade where they finally get to be the bigger buddy and they feel very big and very important. Our Cedar Hill Salute, Compassion, Honor, and Service, that's something that we really weave into our daily activities and our theme. It's very adorable to hear the kids recite it every morning when they come down to do the morning announcements. Our Lunch Bunch program is led by Mrs. Mooney, our school counselor, which you've heard about before, along with the counseling curriculum based on CASEL. One of my favorite things each year is that I go into each classroom and I teach a different lesson on growth mindset. So in the past, we've done things like I have grit and I won't quit, the magic of mistakes, the power of yet. And this past year, I thought it was pertinent. We did flexible thinking. So it was think like a palm tree, and our theme that year was you want to be calm as a palm, you don't want to be broke as an oak because the oak tree will just snap when a wind goes by. So it was really neat to see the kids practicing that flexible thinking. Some of our student leadership programs, we have students in 4th and 5th grade. They may apply to be a character crusader. So they lead our monthly assemblies, pretty much all on their own with some guidance from our school counselor. And they also participate in some different student initiatives throughout the year as well. Our student council, that's comprised of students in grades 3, 4, and 5, and they're elected by their peers. They do some different fundraising initiatives. They also help just really be a voice for the student body. You can see some of the activities that we focused on during last year. Some of the community building activities, we held Socktober, so we had collected new socks for those in need. We also raised money for pets in need, so we called it Pet Pledge for Pets, and the entire student body actually got to vote on 3 different shelters that we would donate that money to, and the students performed little acts at home. They would earn money, and then they would donate it. Our students in grades 3, 4, and 5 were really excited to have their artwork displayed at the YMCA for Black History Month, which was a great recognition. This year, something new that was spearheaded by one of our teachers. It's a beautiful day in our neighborhood. So it was actually a recognition of the works of Mr. Rogers, but it fell really closely to Berners Township Day. And it was a day just to celebrate what it was like to be a good neighbor. We had student greeters and did additional kindness acts just to really showcase what that means to be a good neighbor. We have a picture of Mr. Sempole and me at our color run. We did not let a little bit of rain get our fun down. We all had a blast. It was just a nice night to get parents and teachers and students out just to really run around, be crazy, and just celebrate being together. And lastly, we were excited to participate in the Ridge Gives Back Day, which was just nice to have our youngest kiddos working with our older students, as people had referenced in the past, and to see everything come full circle. A number of students said that they were really excited when they got to Ridge that they would get to come back to Cedar Hill and work with the younger students. So it was a nice day. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to Mrs. Hudak for William Annan.
Good evening, thank you. At William Annan, each summer we spend an enormous amount of time looking at the character education program from the year prior. We do get feedback from our students in the form of a survey each year to identify some of the trends that we are seeing with them, both in managing social and emotional needs, but also their student stressors. This focuses by grade level because we have the unique challenge at the middle school of bringing all of the work and efforts of all 4 of those elementary schools into one, and also dealing with developmentally unique students who are now changing and morphing into different beings before us. The students that enter in 6th grade who do our character education program are still that of the elementary mindset, and by the time they get to 8th grade and 7th grade, we have to craft our approach to meet their unique developmental needs, because at a certain point, some of those things that they do in the elementary school are considered babyish to our middle schoolers, and so we do see that shift through 6th, 7th, and 8th. 6th grade certainly focuses on teamwork. This year we were excited to bring back numerous of our field trip opportunities. Our 6th grade students begin their connections early on this year in September by returning to Camp Bernie, the end of September, beginning of October, where we really begin to focus on coming together as one group at the middle school. In 7th grade, we begin our work, and most of our morning meeting and character education program works on self-awareness. And then as our 8th graders are getting ready to prepare for Ridge, we talk more about, and through their character program, the outreach of our community and being a citizen within Berners Township. On our counseling website, many of our students are looking for opportunities to do service learning and to give back, and so although it's not formally incorporated into our programs like it is at the high school, we do share that information with our parents and our students who want to get actively involved, particularly with our 8th graders. As we begin to do that community outreach, there's more of a curiosity to give back. Mental health curriculums, we certainly expanded them this year. Our school counselors, through their work, as well as our work through our morning meetings, identifying trends on substance abuse and sexual harassment, as well as mental health and suicide prevention. We do a lot of coordination with our health and physical education teachers in that concept as well. In our class lessons and our readings, we talk about friendships in crisis and how to manage a friend, when to get help, when to know to get an adult, and how to support your friends. Oftentimes at our level where our students are taking on a large burden of seeing communications going on socially, on Instagram or Snapchat, and many of them don't have the emotional stamina to manage things when they get to a certain point, and so we're often intervening and talking about when it's time to get help as opposed to when they think they're ratting on a friend. And there is a significant difference when it comes to concern and harm for others' safety. And again, continuing with our class lessons as well as within our guidance modules, we talk a lot about coping skills, resilience, not just the pandemic, but also in general. We have exit slips and screenings that we do every quarter with our students just to do an anonymous check-in with them. And then our counselors will pull any of those students who are in need of additional support. In 7th grade, a lot of their literature focuses on character development, and many of them focus on the trait of empathy, which goes along with that self-awareness. And so through character developments and through their reading and analyzing that, there is a portion of our 7th grade ELA curriculum where those conversations are often happening within the classroom. I would also say that oftentimes, even within social studies and within other content areas, they're talking about effective decision-making, and then they're connecting that to the students currently and how they can make effective decisions and how a decision of one person could have impacted the change of history or the course of a situation when working even within their groups. In 8th grade, we begin to talk more about career planning, something that I'm looking forward to this year. We are working on creating more opportunities for our students to develop career readiness skills, and we're going to be hoping to have and provide further information on that towards the end of the year. Again, counselors held office hours. We heard the wonderful work that our school counselors continue to do, as well as the meetings. And in addition, we do have mentoring opportunities for our students to work with our ABA classes as well. This talks more specifically about some of the group work that our school counselors are doing, stress busters, social skills, grief and loss. Culture and climate was a huge one this year, and that was focused on connecting and reconnecting, which we spent some time on this year as well. We did similar transition activities as the elementary schools do. Our transition to the high school is a big component of our 8th grade programming throughout their year. And our 7th and 8th graders also help us to transition our elementary students into Annan. We did a significant amount of professional development for staff this year on Accepted and provided opportunities for them to learn to be able to support the students and all of their unique needs at the middle school level. We certainly are always focusing on ways in which we can be mindful of changes that our students are needing, and through that character education program, we have our monthly morning meetings twice a month. This year, we did something new for the very first time where we actually took our morning meeting groups, which are usually grade level specific, and towards the end of the school year, we made them multi-grade in anticipation of our first ever school-wide field day. And so this year, we look to provide opportunities to do our morning meetings more cross-grade, where we'll divide 6th, 7th, and 8th graders together more frequently so that by the time we end with our connected activity and our building-wide field day, relationships would have been formed with these groups. And there's another person in the building that is older than them that they can see in the hallway as a friendly face and a person, not just the tall 8th grader that walks past me in the hallway. In addition, we continue with our looping model. As Ms. Smith identified earlier, it's our 3rd year, and so we have a lot of data that we're looking to get on that looping model, both from the student perspective as well from the counseling and administrative perspective, because in addition to our school counselors looping, our assistant principals also looped as well. And how we see the benefit of that is that the connections are made with our families already. Our APs and our counselors have a strong command of the students that are before them as they enter this new grade level and can support their needs as they're transitioning into a different grade. We also did our final work with the College of St. Elizabeth's on our climate survey work that we had to put on pause due to the pandemic. We completed our final exit survey, and through a lot of the work with them, we identified different areas of growth that we'll be implementing for this upcoming school year. One of those areas was an opportunity for students to have a pause to catch up with their teachers. Stressors of feeling overwhelmed by their academic demands. And so we instituted and piloted last year a program called Learning Labs, where students had a modified schedule and were able to have the opportunity on Wednesdays to have a 30-minute window of time to connect with teachers, to get extra help, to be pulled out for counseling, and we're going to be continuing and expanding that program this year in 22-23. We also had the very first Student Principal Advisory Council group this year, where I had the pleasure and honor of working with 22 students from cross grades, where we would meet bi-monthly according at their wishes. And we would talk about issues that were going on at the middle school, giving them really a voice in hearing and solving some of the issues. I worked closely with them on our transition back into the cafeteria. They had very strong voices about book bags and dress codes and empathy and how we need to include others. And they had strong opinions about field day and what should be changed and what they liked. And so we'll continue our work with our Student Principal Advisory Council this year in hopes of allowing them to be the voice as well as our Student Council moving into the 2022-23 school year. And we are also bringing down the expansion of effective school solutions to the middle school this year, which is something I'm very excited and honored about. The ESS program currently is here at Ridge High School, and it's a clinical counseling support program that we're now transitioning to the middle school level. And based upon our student needs and our trends, it's something that I think will be extraordinarily helpful for our students. And now Dr. Lazovic for Ridge High School.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Russ Lazovic, principal at Ridge High School. And I think above everything else, what I hope you're taking away from tonight are all the incredible things happening across the district and at the high school. If we're successful at all, and I think we are, it's certainly built upon the foundation that starts at the elementary level and grows through WAMS. My big theme in talking about what's going on at Ridge High School is our staff. You've seen Ms. Smith, whose office thankfully is located in our building, so we get the most of her. She's absolutely phenomenal, and her team is fantastic with our counselors and our SACs. They're there for everyone, adults and students alike, and we don't succeed without them, so thanks to all that they do. Coming in here 2 years ago, the singular focus that was given to me by everyone I talked to when it came to Ridge was wellness. Separate from the pandemic, which of course added another layer to the idea of wellness, wellness was the focus. We are a highly successful academic high school, and with that comes, beyond the regular pressures posed to teenagers and accelerated by technology and social media, just the idea of we're driven here, and how can we be driven and not be driven over? And that was something that we've talked about a great deal over the past 2 years. My first year here was getting through the pandemic. But it provided some opportunities for us, and one of the things that we implemented that very first year was something called advisory, where we were putting all of our students in new situations and having conversations that we had not had before, and we learned a great deal, not just about our students, but about our staff, what their needs were, where they were when it came to running these kinds of conversations that truly informed what we were able to do last year. And last year was a great deal of work. We set specific goals with the help of superintendent, assistant superintendent, focusing on wellness. The Board of Education not only setting the direction for us, but they put their money where their vision was. They made a significant investment specifically in Ridge High School, and we're grateful for that because everything that comes on these next few slides comes from that investment. Similar things that we've done to years past, Week of Respect and Anti-Bullying, Violence Prevention and Awareness Week, our counselors and our SACs dive into this every year with vigor. But on top of that, we started something homegrown called Tea Time, Thought, Empathy, and Action. Thought and Empathy in Action, sorry. A homegrown program that evolved out of professional development that had been going on for a number of years. We were using a program called Character Strong to kind of guide what we were doing, but sitting down with our counselors and with part of the investment from the Board of Education, we hired 3 of our staff members to be our wellness coordinators. They worked with students, they worked with the staff, and through that they developed a program. This is a 2-year approach for us where while everyone was connected to the program last year, what their main goal was to design programming for our freshmen and our sophomores. They did that successfully, and our freshmen and sophomores went through multiple days where they were working with different groups of students through situations that they don't normally come across in the day-to-day operation of school, but are critical for developing those personal qualities that will make us strong, make us well. And the counselors, the coordinators actually were able to work with a separate part of the investment, liaisons from every single academic department who were connected to their colleagues within their academic departments, but their focus specifically was wellness. And through that, we incorporated 4 wellness days into Ridge High School's academic schedule. We took the time out of our regular academic cycle to focus on wellness. And by wellness, first and foremost, it's seeing every student for who they are, making sure that they know that they are seen and helping them to see themselves and the others around them. We tried to bring the fun into Ridge. on a regular basis, whether it's our supervisors dressing up as the Peanuts characters or faculty staff competitions, connecting our students with students they don't normally connect with, encouraging different activities to support other activities, the football team going to the musical and the forensics team going to a volleyball game, and supporting other kids and seeing what else is going on, but connecting themselves to Ridge High School in a way where they feel proud that of all the public high schools that they could go to, this is the one that they do go to. And really pushing this idea of Ridge. Tea Time also had two other pieces. Communication is huge in trying to connect to the larger community, and so we had newsletters that came out every month called our Spoons, and we had Brews where we tried to bring together all members of the community to hear what's going on. Alum joined us, parents of current students, parents of alum, general community members. We had board members who were regulars at those meetings. We need to have more people at those sessions and connect with them. But again, first year, heavy lift, and it really was exciting. One of the other things that we did was this idea of teacups. Those people who are caught upholding our principles. Both staff members and students were honored every single month. Then we had a different theme that connected with the Tea Time program to identify things that we should be thinking about as adults all the time, and making it positive and celebrating those students. And we had an anonymous system for nominations, and we recognized every single person who was nominated, but they also then selected an honoree each month. Those honorees received prizes that were donated by local organizations from around the community. And they were put up on the website, and they got to hang out with the coordinators and myself. And we also, all the administrators and I, plus the coordinators, would surprise the teacher each month. We'd walk into a class when they were working with students and interrupt the classroom to congratulate them on being that month's teacup. Just really trying to bring the fun and enjoyment and the positivity into everything that we're doing. We talked about Spirit Days a little bit. We really pushed the limit on this. Staff members came up with wonderful ideas, and we tried to incorporate as much Ridge spirit, this idea of being proud of our school, and excited to be here for all the right reasons all year long. Peer mentoring, something we've done regularly for a long time. United Team events. I don't know if you've ever joined us, but one of our best events is our unified basketball game where our teams are playing one another, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. Members of the community come out. You have staff, faculty, administrators working with all of our students as they play together, and it really is a heck of a night. You've heard rotate and drop mentioned before. That was a huge lift for us to switch as quickly as we did. We prepared for a year, and then we moved into that schedule, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. And what I want to stress about this is not only is there science behind moving to these blocks of time when it comes to academic achievement, more importantly, this move in schedule was a wellness move. And you've heard before, Ms. Smith talked about student feedback, staff feedback. We heard all year long about how the change in schedule has positively impacted our students. And we know that well students are more well prepared and are more successful. The less churning, the more learning, and trying to get everyone a little bit more time to focus on where they are, and who they're with, and they can be successful and happy. And that was the feedback that we got. Within our wellness days, I just want to return as far as that feedback, a big focus wasn't just the students. We had programming for our staff. Not just professional development on how they can better prepare to help students be well. We had programming for our staff. Our staff members had opportunities to join all manner of activity. Ms. Fox joined me for one of our planning sessions. We ran 4 sessions for the staff members and got their input. And then we followed that up through faculty and department meetings as to what we can all do together to make the building even more the kind of building we want it to be. So supporting our staff, critical in really moving the wellness for all around. And then that last piece down the bottom there, Ridge Gives Back. I know of no other public high school that does a school-wide day of service. We, again, broke into the academic rotation, and we shut down school for a day, academically speaking, and we really went everywhere. We had all manner of activities, and our staff members were the ones, again, pushing this. We had an unbelievable team of coordinators who in 2 months' time put together the event. And you heard from some of the elementary schools. We connected obviously with them, but we were as far away as Sandy Hook and throughout Hunterdon County, as well as almost everywhere in Berners Township, as well as our other schools. This was, I think, a dream of a number of people in district. We've done pieces of this prior to, but to do it for the full school was significant. If you could have been standing next to me near the end of the day when people were getting off buses literally covered in dirt, some had been rained on, they had been digging, they had been painting, they had been building, and they looked absolutely exhausted and had the biggest smiles on their faces. It really said everything. We ran programming in the building that day. Kids were learning about food insecurity, about volunteerism, about government agencies and how we work as a society, and coming out with unbelievable questions about what they can do to help. Kids made connections and came right back saying, how do I volunteer more and how do I go back to wherever it was that I was during Ridge Gives Back that day? We had a ton of feedback. Our superintendent joined us with his chainsaw and other tools as we were cleaning parks. Everyone got involved. Our assistant superintendent, as fastidious as he is, got out there and got dirty. Yeah, I see you shaking your head. Everyone got involved, and the great thing is that we did that over 2 months, and we immediately, thank you Board of Education, started planning for this year. Ridge Gives Back is going to be so much more than a single-day event. You're going to be hearing about it throughout the year. We have themes now every month. We have a team of people that if we could do that much amazing work with 2 months of preparation, what can we do with 12? And so we're incredibly excited about that. Most importantly, hearing from the students, one of the things through our wellness days that we did was we constantly sought feedback from the kids. The seniors had 3 opportunities to sit down with us in different formats and give us feedback. The other grade levels each had 1. What we heard over time was that as uncomfortable as some of the activities made them, they started to realize how valuable they were, and they wanted more of them. Ridge Gives Back, volunteering, the learning that came out of that for themselves as individual people, but a larger global perspective. What's out there, who needs what, and how we can help, and why helping really is just a great thing. And by helping others, we really help ourselves. And just so much positivity coming out of last year. Our students assistance coordinators, we have 2, and they are tremendous. Did a massive amount of work. We're going to talk about the mental health fair in a second, but this idea that they are constantly working. You saw the data and you heard the sound bites, and what you really can't get in a presentation like this is the person-to-person connection that these folks have. When I sit down and I talk to our counselors, something gets to my level and I have to go talk to a student assistance counselor or one of our guidance counselors, school counselors, they know these kids so well. They know their families, they know what these kids are passionate about, they know what they're struggling with, they know what their goals are, and they do everything they can to move mountains to make sure that those kids have what they need. And that's a day in, day out service. They do it over the summer, they do it when we're open, we do it when we're closed. We truly have phenomenal people who are committed to the kids who go to Ridge High School. You see a list of things going on, most of which, and while she won't take credit, coordinated in some way, shape, or form by Ms. Smith. She wears many hats. And all of these things, basically, in a nutshell, we try and reach every single student. Everybody needs something different. And so the more programs that we have, the more richer the programs that we have are, the more likely we're going to reach the individual kids that come through Ridge High School's doors. And you talked about effective school solutions growing to the middle school. We've had ESS here for a while, highly specialized team of 2, with very small caseload with some of our neediest students receiving all sorts of extra support and incredibly high levels of success of them exiting the program and being able to kind of re-enter and be successful on their own, feeling good about themselves and setting goals and achieving those goals. We have a MAP program as well, another highly educated, specific professional in the building who works with a core group of students. She is a safety net for them, she's a safe haven for them, but she's also a goal setter, an ear, and someone who gets to know those kids so well so they know that they have a place. And that she kind of exemplifies, in the MAP program, exemplifies everything that we're trying to do wellness-wise, which is to give students connections to a variety of people so they always have some place to go. They feel safe here, they feel excited to be here, they know they can be successful, and when they're not feeling successful, they have people they can talk to, people who are there to help. Focusing just a little bit, this was really driven by one of our students' assistant counselors, Ms. Tritt, but it was a collaboration with a number of people, but she really was the driving force and was phenomenal in doing this. But she put together our first annual in-person, and when we say first annual, something we're looking to recreate every year and grow each year. But this idea that we have to talk about mental health, we have to talk about wellness. We have to let kids know it's okay. We have to let the adults know it's okay. We're all here to help one another. But this mental fair was, I mean, absolutely insane. Multiple days, each day, different focuses. She put together just an unbelievable program, and just, if I switch slides here, brought in community collaborators. Got the kids connected to the actual people who are in Berners Township, around Berners Township, helping others. And kids saying that this is okay, and I need to know how I feel. I have to be self-aware, and I have to reach out when I need support, because that's just part of being healthy. And so Ms. Tritt really helped to break down walls. You see things like the coping skills. We had spin the wheel, I spun the wheel. I feel like I lost every time. But it's just amazing watching the kids out there and all these adults coming in. It was a real, true example of what we can do when we have driven, committed people, and Ms. Tritt being one of them. It was just a fantastic program, multiple days, and we're looking to recreate it this year and moving forward. And so I think you can see just not only building upon all the hard work that's going on across the district, but so much going on at Ridge High School. Moving into this year, Tea Time, develop our last 2 years of programming, and our coordinator position then disappears. Thank you, Board of Education, for those 2 years so we could build the program. We're looking forward to those wellness days. We're kicking off our very first day of school with a wellness day. We're opening differently than we ever have before. We have teachers coming up with these wonderful ideas, and again, trying to get kids to see that work can be fun and fun can be learning. And so we're really pushing these things and looking forward to opening the school year. And I think with that, I'm turning it back over to Ms. Smith. Thank you.
All right, so I just want to mention a few other folks around the district who also provide tremendous amount of service to our students. And so everyone who was mentioned tonight, including our Office of Special Services, our school psychologists, our school social workers, our case managers, and child study team members, really providing individualized, specific, high level of support to our students. We also have a very supportive English language learning department, specifically for our students who are new to the country or new to the area. We are supporting their mental health as well. Effective School Solutions, my colleagues mentioned, and also our nursing staff. And so I mentioned the nurses earlier when I talked about the home instruction program, but they do so much, and they are often a landing spot for students who need somewhere to go when they're not feeling well physically, obviously, but then also even sometimes emotionally. We have expanded our youth mental health first aid program over the years, and so our sophomores participate in that program through the health classes. We are also aligning our counseling program with the American School Counseling Association, the national model, and so that is the gold standard for school counseling programs across the country. And so we are in a 5-year model alignment across the district with all of the school counselors. We have several documents that I've linked there, and this presentation will be posted on how we streamline all of the efforts that are mentioned when it comes to suicide prevention, K through 12, and then also substance use and abuse prevention and intervention as well. We also have screenshots there from our Director of Safety, Mr. Werner. He and I collaborate every year to put together the helpline cards and the WeTip cards for our students and families. Our teachers are infusing social and emotional learning competencies and standards in everything that they do in their lessons and in their classroom practices as well. There's numerous staff colleges every year that are geared specifically towards that, and teachers from around the district are helping one another, continuing their learning so that they may support students throughout the year in the classroom. The Office of Special Services also conducted recent studies on chronic absenteeism and school refusal, and this is something that we're looking at as a district so that we can track this with our students and provide early and preventative supports to anyone who may be exhibiting signs of school avoidance that may eventually lead to school refusal. We have our Board of Education Wellness Committee as well that meets monthly, and so a lot of these topics are run through the committee, and that we thank them for their support as well. We also manage a district website full of wellness resources for students, for parents, and for our teaching staff as well. And so we call that our Wellness Resource Center. And so we encourage anyone in the community who's interested to look at that site. This was created by the counseling staff, and they routinely update this in terms of resources that are relevant and helpful to many different social and emotional topics for our families. So definitely check that out. Some of the topics are listed there on the screen. Each of our counselors also have a counseling corner site, which may have resources about their specific program that might be helpful for families. So if you're interested in learning more about the lessons or the groups or the different topics, definitely head into those sites for more information. Our SACs and Effective School Solutions, as they were mentioned earlier, they also have parent programming throughout the year. And so on the district website, and I know it's always linked in Mr. Markarian's SOS Express, the parent presentations link, you can always check that out for different events that are hosted by the Effective School Solutions team. And then last but not least, I did want to mention that one of the committees that Dr. Lazovic is always so supportive with, and also one of the assistant principals at the high school, Mr. Scott Thompson, we co-facilitate the Traumatic Loss Subcommittee. It's part of our bigger crisis team here at the high school. And so we meet quarterly with volunteers in the staff, consisting of, teachers and case managers and counselors. We come together and we review our plan if there ever were to be a crisis or a traumatic loss. How are we preventing, what are we doing in terms of prevention, intervention, and then what we call postvention. And so how are we responding in a really thoughtful and caring way to take care of one another and the community? And so because of our efforts to work on that plan, because of the support of Dr. Lazovic and Mr. Thompson at the high school, we were actually mentioned as one of only 3 schools in the state at the local state conference, the state conference for the Traumatic Loss Coalition of New Jersey. And so that was something that was awarded in May for our work here. We were nominated by the Somerset County Traumatic Loss Office. So that is just a fun fact from the spring. So in summary, if it's possible to summarize all of that in one summary slide, I'm going to go ahead and say that what we do is all, different. Our programs might be different based on our student needs, based on our populations, but it was mentioned several times from my colleagues, and I'll say it again, that we are all connected under our guiding light, so to say, which is CASEL. You heard the term. That's the Collaborative of Academic and Social and Emotional Learning. It is a body of organizations worldwide that say that there are 5 major competencies that our children should focus on as they grow. And so that's self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, social awareness, and relationship skills. And so you'll hear that common theme and thread woven into everything that we do as we all are connected with one another underneath the what we call the CASEL wheel. So with that, thank you so much for your attention and for your time, and thank you again to my colleagues for taking time tonight to be here to share our work with all of you.
Board members have any questions, or do you need time to absorb? That was a lot. I know it was a lot. But if you have a question, you can do a couple questions. Send it. A question. I'm still absorbing, and I got to preview it. So thank you guys. Great job. Really appreciate it. Thank you guys for coming tonight with your contributions. Really appreciate it. I guess we're going to move on here to the next segment. Thanks, Stephanie.
Okay, we're going to get moving along. We still have a lot on our agenda tonight. That was a lot of wonderful information, and it makes me nostalgic thinking back to 20 years ago. Some of the things at the elementary schools that started then are still here, but they're much better, and they've added so many new things. They keep adding, like you saw in the presentation. There's so much stuff. It's amazing. Okay, so we're now up to the superintendent's report. We have 4 items. Would someone like to make a motion for those items? Mr. Salmon and Mrs. Gray seconded it. Before we vote, Mr. Markarian wants to speak to 1 or 2 of them.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. McKeon. So the 4 items, the first is certifying the class of 2022 Ridge High School graduates has to be certified in a specific format for compliance with state law, breaking down the categories of graduation into certain buckets. So that's the first item on the agenda. The second item on the agenda is a list of the overnight trips for forensics. We do this a couple times a year. These are the upcoming trips for this coming fall. The third and fourth items I wanted to take a little bit more time to explain because these are a little bit unusual, something that we don't see every year. The first is the ARP ESSER 3 Safe Return Plan update. As part of our ARP ESSER 3 grant, which is a federal grant, every 6 months, approximately every 6 months, we need to update the Safe Return Plan. So in updating that plan, I wanted to highlight the specific changes that we're looking to make that are different than what we have previously been doing with regard to the subject of COVID. I'll only really be highlighting the things that we're looking at that will be a little bit different than what we were doing last spring. So just to review the proposed changes for the board's consideration here, on the subject of screening testing, we will no longer be doing screening testing. In the past, we had been screening our staff members at least once a week if they were not vaccinated. Recently, that requirement has been dropped. That would also apply to volunteer members of the community who might be coming to one of the schools to volunteer. In the past, they had to demonstrate that they had been screened with a negative test at least once a week if they were a regular volunteer working in the school. So those screening testing requirements have been dropped, so we are not looking to continue those. On the subject of masking, of course, anyone who wants to wear a mask to school will be supported, and anybody may do so if they choose. However, there are some situations where masks are required. I do want to be clear, however, that the recommendation to do contact tracing in every case and to police masking no longer exists. We are not going to be doing contact tracing on individual cases. We are not going to be policing masking. We are going to prescribe what the NJDOH and the CDC are recommending with respect to masking, meaning that for individuals who are known to be exposed, they need to police themselves and they should wear a mask for 10 days. For individuals that are COVID positive, when they return to school, they should wear a mask through day 10 if they are coming to school before day 11. For those individuals who are COVID positive, the return to school protocol will be what it was this past spring, meaning that you may return to school on day 6, but you have to have certain health criteria met, but you are self-reporting this criteria. We are not collecting test results, but we are saying that in order to return to school, obviously you need to be symptom-free, not having a fever, and having tested negative prior to returning to school on day 6. Again, we are not going to we are not going to collect test results. So it becomes the honor system. We're relying on parents that if they are sending their child into school prior to day 10 after having been positive, that means that they tested their child and the test was negative. We're not asking to see a negative test result. However, if a child were to test positive, in any case, we're always asking families to report that to our nurse's office. For masking of students who have tested positive for COVID, again, we are not going to be policing that, but those students that do return to school on day 6 are expected to wear a mask through day 10. We will be noting the most recent CDC guidance that was indicative of the fact that an individual that tests negative twice within 48 hours no longer needs to wear a mask. So we are mentioning that in our protocols as a guidance statement for families. On the subject of virtual instruction, we are recommending the elimination of virtual instruction or Zooming in for students who are home with COVID or for students that might be quarantining for some COVID-related reason. Obviously, with students quarantining but not being positive, in other words, removing themselves from circulation, but they're not COVID positive. That's not something that we anticipate seeing because in all cases of students who may have been exposed, they're still welcome to come to school as long as they don't have any symptoms and they're wearing a mask. So there's no reason to be missing school if the individual is healthy. Therefore, there's no reason to provide Zooming in services for students in that situation. However, of course, students that are actually positive with COVID would need to stay home and not be able to return to school until day 6. However, we are not going to be recommending the continuation of Zooming in those typical cases where students are getting back to school after being out 5, 6, 7 days. Students not reporting to school in person due to being ill with COVID will be treated the same as students that are out with other illness, and they will be marked absent. If there are extreme situations that occur, such as a prolonged illness or extended absence, or possibly a situation where there's a significant outbreak and we have to keep a class of students home, then obviously we will make arrangements to meet those needs of the students, and that may include offering some virtual instruction. But as a general rule, we're not going to be having any Zooming in. We're just going to try to get students into school and treat COVID as any other illness when it comes to extended instructional services outside of school. The only other notable change is associated with notification. Our notification system will really be based strictly on an outbreak situation. If in fact there is a situation where we have an outbreak which is defined as any one class or cohort that has 3 or more cases that are not linked in any other way, that's considered an outbreak, and in those cases we will be doing notifications to families that are affected by the outbreak. So that's it on item number 3, which was the ARP ESSER 3 Safe Return Plan update. Item number 4 that I'm asking for the board's consideration on is the New Jersey Quality Single Accountability Continuum Placements. These are the scores that the state assigned to us as a product of what is affectionately known as the NJQSAC review. This is the state's monitoring system of the performance of school districts, and each school district in New Jersey is assigned to a cohort, and each cohort is reviewed every 3 years. So you don't hear about this every year, but rather every 3 years we report out on our NJQSAC scores. The state of New Jersey refers to your score as your placement in each of several areas, and in our review this year, our instruction and program score was 92%, fiscal management was 98%, governance was 100%, operations was 95%, and personnel was 92%. And those are 4 items under superintendent's report.
Do any board members have any questions before we vote? No? Okay, could we have a roll call, please, Mr. McLaughlin?
Mr. Salmon? Okay. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes.
Ms. Singh,
Yes.
Mrs. White,
Yes.
Ms. Light,
Yes.
Mr. Khanna, Ms. Hira,
Yes.
Mrs. McCune, Mrs. McCune,
Yes.
Madam President.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, we're up to public comment on agenda items. If you have a comment on something on the agenda, please come up and state your name and address, and you can sign in on the clipboard after you speak. The clipboard is down there. I don't see anybody coming down here in person. Is there anybody waiting in the Zoom room? No? Okay. Nobody wants to Zoom anymore. Okay. We are now up to, I have to close public comment. Now we are up to approval of minutes. There's one item. Would someone like to make a motion? Mr. Salmon and Ms. Light. Could we have a roll call, please, Mr. McLaughlin?
Mr. Salmon,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes.
Ms. Singh,
Yes.
Mrs. White,
Yes.
Ms. Light,
Yes.
Mr. Khanna,
Yes.
Ms. Hira,
Yes.
Mrs. McCune,
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't at that meeting.
Madam President.
Thank you. We are now up to the Finance Committee report. There are 27 items. Would someone like to make a motion for those items? Ms. Schaefer and Ms. Singh. Is there a Finance Committee report?
There is. The committee met last Wednesday, the 18th. The first item on the agenda was the Oak Street roof project and a few other facilities updates. Mr. Perrin joined the committee and he reported that the shingling on the roof is 98% complete. The step flashing was currently being installed around the chimneys and the anticipated completion date will be the 31st. Fingers crossed. The Ridge High School gym floors were all completed. The remaining buildings were going to be done this week. And just as a note, the Oak Street gym does not get the polyurethane because it's a different surface. All the repairs were completed on the PA system at Ridge High School. And the work has begun to repair the roof above the Mount Prospect School gym and stage area. The Vispin electronic passkey system installation should be completed this week at Mount Prospect and Cedar Hill. The WAMS door system was a little bit more complex and some additional parts are required and they will be installed as soon as those parts arrive. Some of you may remember that there was some conversation about the possibility of a joint project with the township regarding a piece of property over opposite Lord Sterling. And on the recommendation of someone from the town, John Perrin met with Greg Yannicone, who referred the district to a land use expert by the name of David Kruger. He works at an environmental testing service. And he conducted a land use study of the property and determined that the wetlands at the back of this particular site are the home of the endangered Indiana bat. And in short, no development can be done on this parcel of land. The turf field update, Dennis Keenan from French and Perello Associates joined the committee to discuss his preliminary thoughts regarding possible sites for an additional turf field for Ridge High School. Mr. Keenan shared I think I have this backwards. The 2011 site review done by Yannicone back in 2011 was shared with Mr. Keenan. In considering the sites, William Annan Varsity Field at Ridge High School and the township's Astor Field, each of the identified potential sites posed some challenges with wetlands and buffer areas. Because of its location and not being proximate to residential homes, the focus of the conversation led to Varsity Field. A chief consideration discussed was addressing the larger drainage issues that impact the Varsity Athletic Complex in general. This This work, plus the installation of an artificial turf field, would likely run in the neighborhood of about $2 million. More discussion will be had. An update on the varsity softball field. Mr. Larkin reviewed the timeline for the improvements to the field in the outfield area. Beginning September 5th, some fencing adjustments will be made to align with the grading. Grading cut-ins and not sacrificing, by the way, will also be done that week. Regrading will begin on September 12th. Then the next item was the Ridge High School HVAC project. Mr. Larkin reviewed the classroom locations in need of air conditioning at Ridge High School. It is anticipated that we will be able to use some of the ARP ESSER 3 grant funds to fund new air conditioning in most of the areas identified. Depending on the budget, this could be approximately 12 classrooms. Also, in the topic of HVAC, the rooftop unit assessment is ongoing. Last month, the board approved a project for C&M engineers to conduct a district-wide assessment of these rooftop units, which will begin in September and will be completed sometime in late fall. Our transportation coordinator, Ms. Labarska, joined us to review some transportation impacts of the summer uptick in special education enrollment that has created a need for 3 special needs classes, approximately 17 students, to relocate from Mount Prospect School to Oak Street School. 2 buses are required to transport the students. Because currently there are no special need routes for Oak Street School in the transportation contract awarded in the spring, we'll need to secure quoted transportation routes until we complete the bid process. 2 buses, each carrying 8 to 10 students, will be needed to transport special education students to Oak Street. Each bus will require an aide, and one will also require a nurse. Per diem costs for these routes will be considerable. To manage the high cost of transportation, 1 bus route at Mount Prospect will be eliminated and the remaining routes will be consolidated. This will result in a slightly longer route time for the other route, or 2 routes, pardon me, and an increase in ridership. The next item was on health benefits. Just a brief note, the district is fully self-insured and is therefore not subject to the rate increases occurring in the state health benefits plan. And finally, the Bill Gerichter joined the committee to share the status of the open airmark positions. They're making progress. There are several applicants in the pipeline currently awaiting medical test results, and we should have more of those positions filled in the coming weeks. Our next meeting is September 15th. And then as far as the agenda, items 1 through 3 are standing items. Number 4 is professional development. Number 5 is the approval of a scholarship application. Number 6 is a bid for the waste. No, is that right? Yeah, okay. And then number 7 is, 7 and 8 are for transportation contracts. Number 9 is consulting services. And then numbers 10 through, I think right on through to the end, are student-related. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, could we have a roll call, please, Mr. McLaughlin?
Mr. Salmon?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes?
Ms. Singh?
Yes.
Mrs. White?
Yes.
Ms. Light?
Yes.
Mr. Khanna?
Yes.
Ms. Hira?
Yes.
Mrs. McCune?
Yes.
Madam President?
Thank you. We're up to the Personnel Committee report. We have 49 items. Would someone like to make a motion for those items? Ms. Singh and Ms. Schaefer. Is there a Personnel Committee report?
We met on Friday, August 19th. It was a confidential discussion related to staff and enrollment matters.
Oops, thank you. Could we have a roll call, please, Mr. McLaughlin?
Mr. Salmon,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes.
Ms. Singh,
Yes.
Mrs. White,
Yes.
Ms. Light,
Yes.
Mr. Khanna,
Yes.
Ms. Zira,
Yes.
Mrs. McCune,
Yes.
Madam President.
We're up to the Policy Committee report. Is there a report this time? Ms. Hira, we didn't have a meeting.
We did not. I'll
Okay.
report out next time.
Curriculum Committee report. There's one item. Would someone like to make a motion for the one item? Mrs. White and Ms. Gray? Was there any Curriculum Committee report?
Yes. All right. We met on July 22nd, so this was from last month. Ms. Stotler shared with us the textbook that has been selected for students in Spanish 1 at Ridge. There are about 50 students enrolled in the course who will be able to utilize this textbook in addition to having the digital access. The textbook aligns well with what teachers are currently doing and includes authentic charts and conversations. Mr. Terry then shared with us new textbooks that will be used for AP History and U.S. History Honors as well as CP. The AP U.S. History is using Give Me Liberty. The current textbook students have been using is from 2014, and it's time to use an up-to-date book. The committee reviewing textbooks preferred this textbook as it covers recent history in addition to being richer than others. For U.S. History, Honors, and CP, they'll be using America, Essential Learning. The current 10th grade textbook is from 2001 when Clinton was still president, so clearly it's time to adopt a new textbook. Mr. Terry is confident the new textbook is diverse, inclusive, and will be a great resource. All the teachers in both Honors and CP will use the same text, which provides parity among the courses. In addition, the textbook was vetted by special education teachers who agree that this book will be accessible to their students, and it also has a user-friendly digital version. We then were told about a new cycle course for 6th graders, Study Strategies, and it will be replacing the computer cycle course because many of the standards addressed in the computer cycle course are also addressed in the other technology cycle courses, and we're finding that our students exceed what the computer cycle course covered. Therefore, any needed skills from the course will now be embedded into 2 other tech ed cycle courses in 6th and 7th grade. The goal of the new course is to assist students with understanding and applying executive function strategies by providing students with direct instruction in the area. In addition, the course will also develop the soft skills that are necessary for students to be successful life learners. The skill sets will be reinforced all year and in all other courses. Teachers develop the curriculum this summer. Many topics that will be covered in depth in the cycle class are also front-loaded the first 2 weeks of school by counselors to all 6th grade students. For example, there are at least 5 lessons provided to 6th graders at the start of school about self-initiation. For students who require added support and meet the criteria, there's also the Viking Academy, but this cycle offers a smaller skill set. Having direct instruction on these skills will be beneficial and consistent, and a letter will be sent home explaining the cycle class to parents. We were given an update on the WAMS Learning Labs, with Mrs. Hudak mentioned earlier. She gave us an update on how the pilot program went this spring. To review, on the last 5 Wednesdays of the year, WAMS ran a modified schedule in order to offer learning labs last period, where both skill sets and direct instruction took place, in addition to students being able to work in small groups with teachers. The feedback from the Parent Advisory Council, PAC, teachers and students was very positive. All agreed that the use of time was effective. Students benefited from working with teachers and receiving help getting organized, finishing work and projects. As it was a quiet opportunity, students were all engaged. The only cons reported were that there were only 5 sessions and it was only 1 time a week, and that since it was piloted towards the end of the year, students' workloads had started to decrease. Teachers specifically liked that students could be sent passes directly, and this was key to being able to offer differentiation when working with groups. The PAC shared that they felt it was beneficial to kids that this was offered during the school day. As a result of the feedback, this pilot program will be continued to get a greater sense of its benefits. The format will remain the same and it will begin in September. Next, Ms. Fox gave a brief update on the status of the classroom management software. To review, the Technology Committee decided to pilot Hapara and GoGuardian in the spring from May to June and included 34 teachers across all 6 buildings. Each one was piloted for 3 weeks. Following the pilot, the administrative team analyzed both platforms and made a recommendation to move forward with Hapara for the following reasons. 1, the pilot teachers strongly prefer Hapara 22-10 for usability, but all of the teachers said that they would find any product to be an improvement. Overwhelmingly, teachers found Hapara to be more user-friendly and easier to learn and navigate. 2, Hapara is less expensive. 3, Hapara's reporting features are more user-friendly and accessible for teachers. 4, Hapara includes all key features, including the ability to set the software for in-school and during school hours only. And last, Hapara edged out GoGuardian during the pilot with their support team. They were incredibly supportive and responsive to the needs of the teachers. It has also been recommended that the Bring Your Own Technology be eliminated beginning this fall. There will be an exception for specific courses at Ridge, including some art and computer science courses. Students will be required to use district-provided devices in all other classes, and this information was shared in the July 29th SOS Express. And last, Dr. Lazovic shared the Pathways program that will be piloted this fall. The goal is to provide meaningful and rigorous opportunities to students who would benefit from an alternate environment to the high school. There are 3 potential pathways. One pathway would be early credit, which is a program available at RVCC. Currently, we offer dual enrollment for a few courses such as honors accounting and financial literacy and tomorrow's teachers. Students take these courses at Ridge and they are taught by a Ridge teacher, but students can earn credit from RVCC. The early credit program allows high school students to take courses at RVCC. In the Pathways program, students would take the remaining courses required for graduation at Ridge in either the AM or PM rotation. This would include English, PE, and 2 other courses, and they would be excused from Ridge for the other rotation in order to take at least 9 credits at RVCC. Pathways would be listed on the transcript of a student following this pathway. Students currently do this now at night, and we would like to make it possible during the day. A second potential pathway is the Senior Internship Program. This program could qualify a student for the Pathways program if it meets the criteria. And the final pathway is the School to Work pathway. This would be another pathway that enables students to work and still be connected to the required learning career standards. Students would be required to work a minimum of 18 hours during the school week. There will be an application process for each of these different pathways. And our next meeting will be on September 9th.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay, could we have a roll call, please, Mr. McLaughlin?
Mr. Salmon,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes.
Ms. Singh,
Yes.
Mrs. White,
Yes.
Ms. Light,
Yes.
Mr. Khanna,
Yes.
Ms. Hira,
Yes.
Mrs. McCune,
Yes,
Madam President.
thank you. We're up to the Wellness Committee.
Wellness Committee was supposed to meet this Thursday, but in light of this evening's presentation and the BT Connect meeting that is happening on Wednesday, which I do encourage everyone to attend, definitely crosses over between curriculum and wellness, we're going to postpone that meeting. We will reschedule the Wellness Committee meeting for September to earlier September, so stay tuned for a date.
Thank you. Are there any liaison reports? Okay, so we're up to public comment on non-agenda items. If you have a public comment, please state your name and address and sign in on the clipboard afterwards.
Hi, I'm Debbie Marcus, 16 Lafayette Lane. You may not believe it, but I'm actually not going to start with comments on the health curriculum, as I have in the past few meetings. Instead, I'd like to remind everyone of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Survey our district spent money on this spring. I'd like to know what happened to the results of this survey. It would seem like the results could inform the discussion about other items, such as the counselors who, were doing a lot of amazing things, but they could use, it would seem like they could use some, if there were any guidance of other things they should look into. Why is it taking so long to get the report? It would seem obvious that it would be helpful to have before the school year started. They've had the data results since mid-June, and it won't be as up to date if we wait until next year, defeating part of the effort to do a quick and massive collection. Here is another example of how the results could be helpful. In the focus group I was in, the facilitator said that parents seemed most concerned about academics more than any other school they had worked with. So the board should be aware and respond to this community that apparently, again, I don't have all the data, obviously, just my focus group, that they want more of a focus on academics. All right. Now, while I didn't start with the health curriculum, this DEI survey comment leads into it because parents do want to keep a good balance between all the counseling and great stuff that we're already doing and continuing to add more. All right, if you could pause the timer, I just want to pass out this letter. All right. It's just the commissioner's letter. I know our main discussion about curriculum will be on Wednesday, but I did want to just make some notes in preparation for it to keep in mind. In addition to hearing about the actual curriculum, we do expect to hear about the survey results that were taken this summer about the curriculum. How many responses were there, approximately? How many or what percent of responses wanted to limit items? Approximately how many or what percent preferred no change? What were considered the major issues, if any? That sort of thing. Ms. Fox did communicate to me that she did plan to go over briefly some of the survey results, but I do want to make sure that it's not completely glossed over by saying most people did this or some people did that. I want to get a sense of what this community wants. The board, separately, does not seem or want to be aware of the flexibility in implementing the health curriculum mandate. I shared the commissioner's letter, which states that the examples given in parentheses of performance expectations are not required concepts that must be taught in classes. That alone gives you an easy out, if chosen, about masturbation and some other items listed in Performance Expectation 2.1.5 PGD.4. Additionally, Governor Murphy stated that local district officials are free to adjust standards if they think they are not age appropriate. So mainly, please remember on Wednesday your important role in this process. The curriculum committee will be recommending items, but you approve the implementation. The buck stops with you. The board and the superintendent, you have the ability to just say no. Even if you may want to personally teach new concepts to your own family or children at home, that doesn't mean it's what this community thinks is good for all children. If you insist on including it, I would also like to see the studies reviewed on Wednesday to conclude that items such as teaching children the definitions of genitalia at a very young age actually prevents molestation, which has been claimed. I would also repeat that my request that if implemented, I want to hear the exact wording of how masturbation and anal sex will be taught. Okay, last paragraph. Okay, sure. Overall, I'm concerned about also our district's liability if you choose to include all the items and make it opt-out. There is so much intersectionality of terminology on worksheets and films and items and other subjects that unintended exposure is bound to occur. Please consider rejecting the mandate, just say no, as many other New Jersey towns have done, or at most make it opt-in. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here for public comment? Is there anyone waiting in the Zoom room, Ms. Fox? No? Okay, I don't see anyone else coming down. So at this point, I will close public comment.
Right. So just to respond a little bit, I can share, well, obviously we'll be talking about some of the health stuff on Wednesday. And with respect to the DEI survey report, we anticipate that to be September, October. Probably by the end of September, she was suggesting? Okay. So I would say September, October, we have to pick a date. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's going to be public. We have to figure out the date. I'll get back to you on that.
For when we're reporting it out?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so stay tuned for the exact date on that. Okay, we are up to board forum. So there are 3 items listed here. The first one is board goals. So each year, the Board of Education develops its own goals, which are goals that have to do with something that we as a board, can work towards. It's not the same as district goals, which we'll also be discussing tonight. So to recap what our board goals were last year, we're just going to have a discussion tonight, and then we'll probably adopt our board goals in September after the board has time to talk about it and make suggestions. Our board goals last year were, number 1 was resume work on the Bernards Connect as part of strategic planning. The second one was participate in opportunities to expand on working knowledge of the school district. And the third one was make communications to the public more efficient with a focus on the chain of command. So those are the ones we set for ourselves last school year. So I don't know if any board members have any, I assume we want to continue working on the Bernards Connect project as part of strategic planning, so that might make sense to leave that one in there. If anyone has any ideas for different or new ones or changes to the ones we did, what do you guys think?
I think we should continue on the communications with the community and figuring out ways to make them more efficient, effective, and open.
Okay, so we could reword that one a little bit and keep that one, Mr. Salmon?
Yeah, I think the, specifically to that point, the implementing more BT Connect meetings, I think hopefully we get a better kind of community turnout at some of them, but the more we have them, the more people will realize they're an ongoing thing, and we can discuss kind of big issues or small issues, but I think the small group format is really a great way to connect with connect community, staff, and administration board members all together in informal discussion group. So specifically that, with regard to communication, would be helpful.
I would like to echo the last 2 comments and just add that I think the more that we do them, the more the word will get out into the community that there's more of a dialogue or, a back and forth where the voices of anyone who attends, can really be incorporated in a less formal way than we have here. And I think that will help in what Mr. Salmon's referring to in terms of, getting more community engagement.
I agree. I thought it was so much more enjoyable than these kind of board meetings for all of us. Ms. Singh?
Robin, I wanted to add on to what everybody said already, but the BT Connect meetings that I've attended so far have been really a great way to speak to the public, but I thought that it would be beneficial for us to get more of a heads up on the topics that they really want to talk about more. So maybe if we can survey parents and also staff to see what's happening for them and what they really need to know more about. It might give us more of an itinerary to go through and maybe even doing it on a monthly basis.
I actually think that we should also maybe repeat some of them. So the one that we did on communication, ironically, if we kind of keep going on discussions about it and figuring out, really getting to the, that wasn't controversy, but the conflict between too much information out there and not enough information, and how do we access information, kind of drilling down into some of those things. So maybe repeating some of the BT Connects as a second round, all right, let's narrow this and focus it.
Anyone else? I have one other idea for board goals, but does anyone else have anything? Go ahead.
Sorry, just one more thing. Also to find out how to follow up on the meetings that we've had and the future meetings that we will have, so, what's coming out of that, because there were a lot of ideas, so just to see how we're tracking that.
Are we shifting off of communication and BT Connects, or?
Sure.
if you want.
Wait, before you do that, can we
Okay.
sort of tie it somehow a little bit? I'm just thinking in terms of our presentation for tonight, which was on wellness, and one thing that stood out was we're kind of in this year of discovery in the sense that our numbers went up for 21, 22 about kids and services, and my hunch is that that's related to the fact that the previous year, we really weren't here. We were remote, and now we're back. So something to stay on top of. What does it look like this year? Because everything's getting back to being, typical, normal. Like, my hope is that those trends are, going back down, but something that we do to look into that and stay on top of that.
Perhaps we can get a report, just a board update quarterly or after every marking period end to see where we're at for the year.
I mean, maybe put that on the Wellness Committee agenda to schedule how that's going to work, discussion about the best way to do that.
And then also maybe discussing, I don't know, if we could get recommendations. It seems like the anxiety of our students upticked quite a bit with that, and it could be a result of COVID, and coming back to school, or it could be, some additional pressure that our students are feeling. So I'd like to hear more about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, there was an uptick before COVID, but it was much more drastic during COVID. So whether that levels off this year, I don't know.
It's definitely something that we put on the wellness agenda they pretty much evaluate it, especially during COVID, we were talking about it, but pretty much quarterly. But we can definitely keep that on the agenda.
One other idea I had for a board goal, we definitely have the communications goal and the Burners Connect goal, that we can reword them more specifically. An idea I had talking with some people about finance stuff and state funding. Now that things are starting to go back in person, and all these legislative meetings with school boards and stuff aren't on Zoom because that was mind-numbing. I would like to do a little more like lobbying and networking with our legislators for some of the things that we've been working on for a long time with unfunded mandates and things like that. I know school boards convention is in person and we can do a little bit of that there, but we could make a goal with something like that for our third goal, if other people are interested in that.
Not just funding, but legislatively as well?
Sure, just like networking with our legislators and there's the Garden State Coalition, there's the New Jersey School Boards, county and state level meetings, the legislative committee, which I'm a rep to, which was awful when it's all on Zoom. I don't know how much of it's going to be in person. Like, I think some people don't want to, it was a long drive to Trenton, so I think it's going to stay partially virtual, but there's a lot of other opportunities at the county meetings and stuff like that, and a lot of that is going back in person.
I think similar to what Gudia was referring to earlier about polling the community and the teachers and whatnot about what they'd like to see us and getting topics to explore those so that we're all rowing in the same direction would be helpful.
And school boards also sets up a lot of meetings with legislators that we've attended in prior years, so we could, where they'll try to get some towns who have a similar concern together, some board members from various towns who are concerned about the same issue. We'll go meet with the legislator, and they can hear from more than one town at a time. So we'll draft a couple and spread them in weekly notes. People can chime in on the wording for the board goals, yeah.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to throw another one out there if you.
Yeah, well, it doesn't
stop
have to be 3. We're allowed to have more than 3.
Yeah,
We don't
I
have
know.
10, but we could have 4.
Well, and this is just sort of a thought about slightly more long-term planning, thinking about going back to the strategic plan and, where we are, where we stand with it, not just financially, but, what is our long-term goal in terms of, school use and fields and, is the capital projects, but also, educationally, where, what are our long-term goals?
Okay, so the second item listed is board member remote attendance at public meetings. This is on here because we had never had anybody attend board meetings remotely until we changed or drafted a change to our policy during COVID, which was mainly
in response to COVID, because we were having our meetings entirely virtually, and then we were speculating, when is it going to go back in person? Is everyone going to be able to come back in person? If some people at that point, this discussion started before people were able to all get vaccinated. If some people had an immunocompromised situation and they couldn't come back, but some of us were back or whatever. So we looked at our policy, and we did draft it such that board members could attend a couple meetings remotely. And then we also made it so each board member could attend the committee meeting remotely, I think once a year. So I think there's only been twice where people Zoomed in to a public meeting, a public Board of Ed meeting. And so the question has come up, like, when we made that policy, what was it intended for? Was it for emergency situations, one-off, like medical or family emergencies, or is it for, more regular things like work travel and, whatever, any kind of travel? So I know board members haven't all discussed it as a group since it was originally proposed, which was a couple years ago, and a lot of different board members now. So we can have a discussion about it and send it back to the policy committee if you guys want to.
I mean, this came up because of me. I brought this up because I had 2 business trips that directly conflict with Board of Ed meetings. And understandably, for the executive session, that's just probably not feasible, as I discussed with Robin. But attending the Board of Ed meetings, I think that just for the community, for people that are, even running or new board members coming on, having that flexibility to balance their not only their work-life balance, but also their volunteer activities, and not have to worry about anything really conflicting with it by, from a work travel perspective, I think would be helpful. Now, that being said, I don't think that in any way, shape, or form it's productive for board members to be doing this for every single meeting. So I do think that there should be some reasonable limit on it, but it would be nice to at least give that flexibility going forward.
Robin, what is our current policy about missing meetings? I mean, so I was on a work travel meeting and I said, look, it's just gonna be impossible for me because I was in a different time zone. And so I didn't Zoom in, but what exactly
Well, I mean, people have always missed for, travel, because
Right.
we never had a way to Zoom in. The policy officially is that board members can miss, whenever they have to miss. The only official policy, and John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there is some kind of rule that, like, if a board member misses more than 3 consecutive meetings not for good cause, then it can become an issue with them not, like, fulfilling their responsibilities, but that would be without good cause. So obviously, if you had some kind of medical emergency or something and missed 3 meetings in a row, that would be a just cause, right?
But I thought the question was about
Right.
what your policy currently is.
We don't have a policy for how often you can miss. The only thing I'm aware of is if you miss a bunch in a row, it could become an issue, right?
No, but is there in the current remote meeting policy? I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, I think it said, right.
There are limitations.
Yeah, it said 3
can
total, but it also said for, like, emergency type situations, or it was worded in such a way that it wasn't clear what type of emergency. Is it a work emergency, a weird family or medical emergency?
I mean, we really haven't discussed this. This came up right, in the heart of COVID. And prior to that, it just was, if you were sick or you were traveling for business, you let somebody know and you weren't at the meeting, and that was just how it was. And then because of COVID, because we were all first virtual, and then we knew that there was a good chance that 1, 2, 3, multiple ones of us could have been in quarantine or with COVID, and we wouldn't have a quorum. That's why the discussion kind of unfolded about what should we do. I think Zooming into a committee meeting is not difficult. It's a small, we can still hear each other. You can still work productively. I don't think, we've done it, I don't know, maybe once or twice. I personally don't think it works so well in this situation to have a person's voice in the microphone, and there's the delay with the streaming, so you don't even hear what's going on. And I don't know that, I'm more apt to say it should revert to, how it always was, which was once in a while, if you're traveling, you're traveling, or if you're sick, you're sick. I mean, it's obvious, that we all get the dates and we do the best that we can, but I don't really know if it's that helpful to have people zooming in this type of situation.
I tend to agree with Mrs. White. First and foremost, because talking to members of the public, knowing this was going to be on the agenda, who tune in via the live stream, you really can't hear the person who's talking, just a voice coming out of a laptop or whatever we're using. And I think the delay makes it even worse, even if you're hearing pieces and parts of it. But just philosophically, what Mrs. White said is we all accept that these are the dates. We all agree on them, actually. We're notified in advance, and we all understand that everyone has a life, whether it's a vacation, whether it's a business trip, or whether it's an illness or something else. It's okay to miss a meeting, and there are occasions when any of us might have to do so. In being engaged in our Board of Education over 24 years, I have never witnessed an attendance problem, never. Not with anyone that I can think of. And Mr. Byrne used to take January off every year, and we all accepted that he was going to Florida for January, and that was fine. That was completely fine, and a decision that he made to do so. Not to call out Mr. Byrne, I mean, but anyway, so I think we have to consider the larger, like if the purpose is because it's a public meeting and the vast majority of our audience, which kind of looks like it must be, is at home, what is the real advantage? If it's for the public and the public has a tremendous amount of difficulty with that format. I think if we had an emergent, to your point about when maybe it's a conditional policy, if we had a situation where we weren't going to be able to have a quorum, and the only way we were going to make that happen was, maybe we had several illnesses and then someone who happened to be on a business trip and they could conceivably Zoom in and we needed to vote on something important, then maybe that's a time to consider it. But it was really founded in a moment of crisis, not, for something ongoing, in my mind.
I mean, I think historically Zoom didn't exist, so the option didn't exist. But for a board member, again, under extenuating circumstances, if they want to be present and this is a way for them, I mean, we've done it in the past. Like we've done it, when, one of our members has been sick and needs to appear, wants to appear. So I don't think it necessarily hurts to maybe put in like maybe an option once, if they want to appear via Zoom. Again, it's trial and error to see if it works, and if it doesn't, then possibly change it.
I mean, I know when I Zoomed in when I had COVID in January, I couldn't hear what was going on because of the lag, and it was very confusing. But I mean, obviously, there's technical issues that could probably be worked out to a certain degree. But I do agree that when when people Zoom in to make their public comment, it's hard for the people watching to understand that. I don't know what you
There
found.
definitely technology exists to be able to do that. Even
Sure.
the discs
Yeah.
that can connect to a
Right.
computer.
Right.
That would be like a disc, almost
Yeah.
like one of those
Sure.
phones.
Sure.
That you hook into the computer and it does that. So I mean, that's something that I think could be probably dealt with.
I mean, my concern would be, I don't think it's a very productive conversation when you've got someone on the computer, and if everyone is doing it fairly frequently, we could have every meeting having at least one or two board members Zooming in, which would be kind of difficult. So I wouldn't want to see it happen often, because I think it would just detract from what we're doing here. You know what I mean? So I'm not opposed to having it as a option, if it's limited, so that it's not like really often. Otherwise, if people have to miss, they have to miss. And like I said, like Karen said, if there was a problem where we couldn't get a quorum, then maybe we could make an exception. You know what I mean? In certain situations like that, if we've already advertised the meeting and there's important things that need to be dealt with or something.
I think there should definitely be a limit. And again, by default, if it's not working, I think board members will automatically say, okay, look, I'm not going to Zoom in because it's not working.
I think it's challenging. We have to consider like a lot of things. What if you're a committee chair and you're giving a full committee report? That's never going to work on Zoom. It's just not. I'm, just being realistic here. But also the nature of this meeting, there's visual cues. We see green lights go on, so we know someone else is going to, it becomes more of a viewership for the person on Zoom. And they can watch the live stream anyway. So I guess, I mean, I'm fine with what Ms. Hira is saying about, maybe there's, everyone can do that once during the course of a 12-month period or something. I just don't think it's very productive. And again, with consideration for the audience and the public at home, I don't really think there's any real value added for them.
Anybody else want to chime in? Tim?
I just feel like quorum is the salient point. Like, we're here to do kind of the board business, and if we have a quorum, then that's what we need to kind of focus on. Kind of just Jen's point. I think that's the focus here. If you have to, all the board meetings are known before the year starts, before the school year starts, so we know every date for the school board meetings. We know all our committee meeting dates. So if you have something come up last minute, but we have a quorum, then you miss. I mean, if it's something important that you want to speak on, you can submit a written statement or something like that if you know something's coming up, or we can, if it's not something critical that needs to be voted on that day, we can move it to the next board meeting or the next committee meeting or something like that. So there's ways to mitigate, a missed meeting. But I think if we have a quorum, we should continue with, not hold everything up and do the board's business. Like, not everyone has to be here for every meeting.
I mean, I know we've moved summer meeting dates in the past when we, like, not the day before, but like when we realized, oh my gosh, 5 of us have to drop our kids at college on the same week and we're all going to be gone. So like there is some flexibility in the summer meetings because that's where the attendance problems really happen because of that kind of stuff.
I've only been doing this for 5 years. You've been doing it for 10. And I will say pre-COVID, like it just wasn't an issue. For the most part, maybe somebody was sick once, twice, and they just missed a meeting, but it really wasn't an issue. And I think it's only because of the pandemic that we even had the conversation about it. So, I still think that, I'm not quite sure that the benefits of having somebody on a microphone, even with any kind of adapter, is, I don't think that the positives outweigh, and, to me, I would be like, if I'm sick or I'm traveling, if there's I know what's on the agenda, if there's something that I really want to say, I can give a statement to somebody. I'm not sure that there's, I would like to keep it for the committee meetings, because I do see the benefits in that, because you can work very well, even if somebody is, on the screen. But we don't have that here. It's not the same thing when we, use, maybe somebody has something on a screen, I don't know. But, in a committee meeting, it just works the same way. That's not how it works here. So I don't really see the benefit to having a voice on a microphone.
Well, and with the committee meetings, we had limited it to once per year per
Right.
committee because we want the alternates to get a chance to try out different committees. So we don't want people to be zooming in all the time and the alternates never get a chance. So, I mean, with a couple of exceptions, I think, 1 or 2 times someone got COVID at the last minute and we let them zoom in. So they might have done it twice during COVID, but in general, I think we should stick with the once for committees.
I think Zoom has definitely filled a purpose. I mean, we are able to broadcast our meetings here, and that's great, and we should preserve some of those things that have worked really well. I don't think Zooming people in who are participating in the meeting is particularly valuable, and I don't want the public to think that we're kind of saying, well, you can be wherever you want and show up for a meeting and board meeting. I mean, we take these pretty seriously. Most of us put them on the calendar, and the attendance is always good. We're not just sort of saying, well, you can be wherever you want to be and come into the board meeting. I mean, we've all sat through Zoom meetings where you're half paying attention and somebody's not really paying attention at all. So I think it's much more productive to have everybody present as much as we can and accept the fact that people are going to miss occasionally, and that's okay.
And I don't disagree, but to your point, allowing this option shows the dedication of the board member that actually wants to be participating in the process.
But I don't
Sure,
think
but I think that's
I was going to say, I don't think that's even in question. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's questioning anybody's commitment or dedication. The only thing I would say is, I think we have to make a decision of how we're going to proceed. It can't be, based on, well, you want to do it, but you don't want to do it, and it's important to you to do it. Like, we need to have a consistent, we're either going to just...
No, I think we need to send it back to the policy
Okay.
committee and firm up the language because it's very unclear right now. I mean, the other reason to limit it is that but you can't Zoom into executive session for confidentiality reasons. And if we had people Zooming in all the time because they were traveling, we would have only part of us for those important discussions, which wouldn't be good. If there's only, you know what I mean? If it became a common thing for people to be Zooming in. So that wouldn't be a good thing. I wouldn't be comfortable with that. So should we send it back to the policy committee to firm it up? Okay. Yes. Okay, and then we're up to district goals. Nick, do you want to speak to that?
So, district goals. I've drafted a few and shared them already with you, so you've had hopefully a chance to think about it. But the 3 district goals, just for the benefit of the public that's here or maybe watching at 9:52, is that we really want to focus on our district websites. We have been working on them over the summer. And we want to continue our focus on the district's instructional technology plan, of which there was a significant presentation and discussion about during the spring. And obviously, we just heard more with respect to HAPARA and BYOD from the curriculum committee. So we know that this is an evolving initiative, especially as we enter the second year of really pretty much a one-to-one environment with respect to the Chromebook. So we've got a lot more work to do, and we want to keep it on the radar as an important agenda item. So it's a combination of the technology plan and the district websites. The second goal is to remember our focus on the strategic plan. We have been working on the strategic plan since its inception with some greater emphasis on different aspects, some more than others, but definitely progress on all of the goals on the strategic plan. And this year, there's an obvious focus on the health and wellness. Obviously, we just talked about getting the DEI report and how that might give us some information about health and wellness. We just heard from all the schools about what they're doing with character ed and how they're working on SEL. And obviously, we have a program on Wednesday night, and we're talking about the health curriculum, which is a comprehensive health and physical education curriculum initiative, not just some of the hot button issues that we've heard, but some of the things that people aren't talking about also are included in that curriculum revision. So there's a lot of meat there with a lot of really helpful things for our students that are important for them to get some education on to really prepare them for the world that they live in so that they can be safe and take care of themselves. And so we've got a lot going on. I think that's a really important goal to give some extra attention to this year. And then lastly, we've been having a lot of conversations about various capital projects. You just heard a little bit of report on a possible major capital project on Varsity Complex that maybe comes to fruition down the road. We've been having a lot of conversations about mechanical equipment. Obviously, in light of COVID, we've been really taxing our equipment over the last couple years. So we're doing this RTU inventory. We want to have a really good handle on some of these potentially big ticket items. So the third goal that I'm proposing, and this would probably be going into the winter and early spring as we work on our budget, is preparing a long-range capital projects plan. So those would be the 3 goals, and I think they'd be keeping us very busy this year.
Does anyone have any questions?
Will we see those written down someplace, and where do we put those eventually?
They would ultimately be on the board agenda. I didn't put them on yet, just for some discussion under board forum tonight. But I can put them on the agenda for the September meeting, and I can certainly make sure you all have a hard copy before then. And I can ask for your feedback on those as well if you have any thoughts. Send them to me, and I can incorporate them into the detailed wording.
I have a couple of thoughts in terms of the district goal about the capital projects. That's been something that we've gotten a lot of questions about, and a lot of the discussion got delayed during COVID that we would have had about that. So that might be a topic for a future BT Connect meeting, so that people can ask questions and stuff like that, because I know even board members that weren't on the board the last time we talked about the whole thing, you know, are, you know,
Sure.
have been asking lots of questions about the conversations, and things have changed from that point. So some of
Absolutely.
the things we talked about might be in the pipeline now aren't, and then there's new things in the pipeline that we
Right.
didn't know about and stuff. So I think it is a big discussion. It's very important. You know, and I think that might be a good another like thread for the BT Connect, you know, to talk about.
Okay. If you would indulge me, I had a couple quick things. One is just a quick reminder, our first day of school for students is coming up on September 6th. And just to remind everybody, that is an abbreviated day for teacher in service, so the kids will be going home on a shortened schedule on the first day of school. I wanted to throw a shout out to Oak Street. They are being patient as we work on their roof project. I know it has created some disruption in what would normally occur with visitors in the building, but we can't have that right now while we have that roof project going on. I know they took fencing down today. They're putting up new fencing, I believe, tomorrow. And hopefully we get that thing finished with our target date of August 31st, but we will be watching that and holding our breath. And I heard a lot of questions about student forms and access to Genesis. We did send out messaging over the last week or so, letting parents know that they need to go into Genesis to do their parent forms. And the students also have forms to do as well before the Genesis portal will activate access to schedules and student teacher assignments for the first day of school. And we anticipate that will be ready on the 24th, if I remember, 25th. 25th. Thursday the 25th. I couldn't remember from my SOS if it was the 24th or 25th. So the 25th of August after 12 noon, hopefully things will light up and schedules and teacher assignments will all be accessible. But just a reminder that the parents and the students have forms to do in order for those things to theoretically light up at noon on Thursday, August 25th. In theory. We put together a flyer for back to school night dates and times, and if it hasn't been pushed out already on social media, it will be. It was pushed out?
I saw it.
So we got that done. And that's it.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything? No? Can we have a motion for adjournment over there? Ms. White and Ms. Schaefer? All in favor?